Chapter 700. If one had to describe it, it would be what a mess. Li Sihan used to be Mu Jinming's childhood sweetheart. She worked with Mu Jinming for a while when they were young. Later, Mu Jinming and Xiao Fei got married, and she went abroad after attending the wedding. Their eldest son was slightly younger than Mu Qiji, and their daughter was even younger than Xiao Jin. It was obvious that she was doing well now. She seemed to be a little curious about Song Yanqing and asked several questions. In the end, Xiao Jin was sure that Li Sihan didn't know who Song Yanqing was. In the past, the Mu family didn't have the ability to connect with the Song Yanqing, so it wasn't strange that Li Sihan didn't know who Song Yanqing was. Not long after, Mu Jinming called and said that he was on his way home. Li Sihan volunteered that she would cook for him tonight and said with a smile, "Uncle, you haven't eaten my cooking for a long time, right?" Li Sihan was young, but she didn't act like a rich young lady. She even learned cooking from Mu Jinming. She was talented, but it was a pity that she didn't fall in love. Xiao Fei's face turned green. Although she raised Xiao Jin and knew how to cook some basic dishes, she didn't know how to cook difficult dishes, especially now that she was pampered in the Mu family. How could she remember how to cook? Mu Xiangshan raised his eyebrows. "But you're a guest. How can you cook?" "So what?" Li Sihan ran her fingers through her hair. "We're family." Xiao Fei, this shameless woman. She was furious. Seeing that Li Sihan had already entered the kitchen, she said shamelessly, "I'll help too." Mu Xiangshan glared at her. "Can you cook?" Xiao Fei said angrily, "I'll help. I can eat." Mu Xiangshan. After the two of them went in, the few people left in the living room looked at each other. Song Yanqing felt that Li Sihan and Xiao Fei were too strange. He pondered for a moment and confirmed that it was not good for him to get involved in this matter, so he did not say anything. Mu Xiangshan was worried that Aaron would be bored, so he asked Aaron, "Aaron, do you know how to play chess? Can you play with Grandpa for a while?" Aaron nodded and said cautiously, "I've been with my mother." Mu Xiangshan smiled. "That's good." He called for someone to bring over Chinese chess and asked Aaron to play with him. He then said to Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing, "You two stay at the side and learn a little." Xiao Jin, forget about Xiao Jin, but Mu Xiangshan definitely knew how to play Song Yanqing. He didn't say anything and just sat beside Xiao Jin, watching Mu Xiangshan and Aaron play chess with great interest. Xiao Jin heard the argument between Xiao Fei and Li Sihan in the kitchen, but the content made her a little surprised. Xiao Fei followed Li Sihan into the kitchen and said, "Do you know what you're doing right now?" Li Sihan said slowly, "Green tea, bitch? TSK. What do you know?" "I'm much better than a green tea bitch." Xiao Fei was shocked. "You still have the cheek? You came back to annoy me, didn't you?" Li Sihan glanced at her disdainfully. "Yeah, I saw that you were living too comfortably, so I came back to make things difficult for you. Why did you come in when I'm cooking?" "Why? Are you afraid that I'll poison you?" Xiao Fei said confidently, "I came in to help." "Why? Can I?" Li Sihan, "Tisk, you're so virtuous. Have you been cooking for Jinming all these years? How can you show your culinary skills to others? You're still calling him Jinming. Are you so unreserved at your age?" Chapter 701. Li Sihan rolled her eyes at Xiao Fei. She took out the frozen meat from the fridge and defrosted it. As for the other vegetables, she skillfully washed and cut them. Xiao Fei could only watch from the side. When Li Sihan was preparing to stew, she threw a few pieces of vegetables to Xiao Fei. When she saw Xiao Fei chopping vegetables as if he was chopping people, she said, "I just came back. Do you have to be so worried that your precious husband will like me? He didn't like me back then. Do you think he will like me now?" "I don't think so." Xiao Fei glanced at Li Sihan. "I'm not worried about you and Jinming. It's just that you came back and said something about Old Master. It's not like you don't know that Old Master has a problem with me. You have ulterior motives?" Li Sihan sneered. "If I could do it, would you have been able to marry into the family back then?" Xiao Fei asked. "What do you mean?" Li Sihan rolled her eyes. "That unfilial son chased his father out of the country for you. Do you think it's a big deal for me to do that?" Xiao Fei said, "You're right, but you can't bite the hand that feeds you." She held the kitchen knife and waved it as she spoke. "I haven't told anyone about you all these years." Li Sihan dodged to the side. "Be careful. This is a kitchen knife." If anything happens to me, I'll be hospitalized and you'll go to jail. Think about it carefully. Xiao Fei resentfully put the knife away. Li Sikan saw her like this and snorted. Do I need you to tell me that? I've already found someone to cripple that bastard. He could forget about having children in this lifetime. Xiao Fei heard this and gasped. He looked at her in disbelief. You're so vicious. Li Sikan laughed. You have the cheek to say that? You beat him up and sent him to the hospital with a concussion. I paid for the money. Xiao Fei's face turned red. What can I do? I'm just a weak woman. I can't beat him, so I can only open his head. If I was a little later, you wouldn't be here. Why don't you know how to be grateful? Li Sikan glared at her. The two of them still had some strange things that they didn't say. They had indeed had a cat fight before. Anyway, the two of them didn't like each other. After all, Li Sikan really liked Mu Jinming back then. Later, when she found out that Mu Jinming didn't like her, she felt a little frustrated and found Xiao Fei an eyesore. She felt that Xiao Fei was purely an idiot with no IQ. She was useless except for crying. How could she be worthy of Mu Jinming? It was precisely because of this that Li Sikan was in a bad mood after her defeat. She was a fair, rich, and beautiful woman who did not lack partners, so she casually picked one to date. Who knew that he was blind at that time? Later on, Li Sikan felt that her ex-boyfriend was a little too much and decided to break up with him. Who would have thought that her ex-boyfriend would become a terrorist? He accused Li Sikan of playing with his feelings and insisted that Li Sikan compensate him millions of dollars in damages. Li Sikan scolded him for being crazy. Of course, she was unwilling. In the end, they got into an argument. Not only did her ex-boyfriend want to rape her, he even wanted to kill her. People who were agitated to the point of losing their rationality. At that time, if it wasn't for Xiao Fei, who was passing by, who swung a brick in shock and broke his head, Li Sikan might have died. Xiao Fei hit him until he had a concussion and cried miserably. Later on, he was sent to the hospital. It was Li Sikan who used her connections to settle the matter. She paid for the scumbag's treatment, but after he was released, she didn't let him have an easy time. She was the kind of person who refused to be taken advantage of. Chapter 702. After the incident, Li Sikan asked Xiao Fei not to tell anyone about it. Xiao Fei was scared to death that he had hit someone, so of course he would not tell anyone about it. This incident became a secret between the two of them. They had not seen each other for many years. After all, they were former love rivals, so Xiao Fei still kept an eye on him. It was said that Li Sikan was doing well abroad. Anyway, she occasionally heard Grandpa Li mention it. Li Sikan said, I think you are doing well. You are not a good person, but your child is quite good. You must have inherited Mu Jinming's genes. If you had inherited them, you would be finished. Xiao Fei was furious. What do you mean by that? Jean is not my biological child yet. Look at how well I have raised her. Li Sikan said, I heard that she took drugs a while ago. That is a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. Xiao Fei and Li Sikan were arguing in the kitchen, but Xiao Jin heard it clearly. She did not expect that the two of them would have such a relationship. She immediately smiled. Song Yanqing saw it and asked her softly, What are you smiling about? While they were talking, Li Sikan's daughter, Erin, looked over and saw Song Yanqing talking to Xiao Jin gently. She was a little envious. Xiao Jin said slowly, Nothing. I just thought of something interesting. They watched Grandpa Li and Erin play chess in the living room. After a while, Mu Jinming came back. When Mu Jinming returned, he naturally exchanged some pleasantries. After all, Mu Jinming hadn't seen Li Sikan for many years. In any case, they were old friends. After asking about Erin's well-being for a while, Xiao Fei and Li Sikan began to serve the dishes one after another in the kitchen. Musichu was in school, so he did not come back for the time being. When the dishes were served, Mu Xiangshan first glanced at them and then asked Xiao Fei, Which one did you make? Xiao Fei said cleverly, I made all of them. Mu Xiangshan was speechless. After that, he didn't even dare to eat another dish. Li Sikan came out of the kitchen with a plate of dishes with a smile on her face. Her elegant appearance made it hard to tell that she had been busy in the kitchen for a while. She carried the dishes out with a smile on her face. Uncle Mu, Jinming, come and have a taste. I haven't cooked for a long time. I don't know if my culinary skills have deteriorated. Xiao Fei. She snorted sourly. It had to be said that Li Saikin's cooking skills were not bad. At least Xiao Jin felt that there was nothing wrong with it. She brought Song Yanqing here and was also the focus of everyone at the table. From time to time, she would say a few words to Song Yanqing. Song Yanqing's table manners were elegant and refined. From time to time, he would respond to Mu Xiangshan and Mu Zhiming's conversation. Both the guests and the host enjoyed the meal to their heart's content. Li Sihan didn't use words to provoke Xiao Fei. Instead, she let Xiao Fei hear it. She came back this time for something. She had a project that was related to the Mu family's company. So this time, she came back to deal with this matter and also to visit an old friend. Ever since her parents passed away, she rarely returned to the country. There was nothing worth remembering here. This time, she would only stay for 3 days. Mu Xiangshan made the decision to let her rest here. After dinner, Li Sihan wanted to go shopping. She dragged along a reluctant Xiao Fei and left Aaron at home to accompany Mu Xiangshan. When Xiao Jin sent Song Yanqing out, he could hear Xiao Fei and Li Sihan arguing. Chapter 703. Song Yanqing had to go home that night, so Xiao Jin only walked him to the car at the gate. When he was about to leave, Xiao Jin waved his hand and said, "Rest early after you go back. I'll go back to school tomorrow." Song Yanqing nodded and said in a low voice, "You must tell me if there's anything. Also about that female corpse." Xiao Jin nodded. "I'll keep an eye on her. She'll be fine." While they were talking in a low voice, Li Sihan and Xiao Fei got into the Mu family chauffeur's car. Seeing the two talking, Li Sihan could not help but think, "How did you get so lucky to have such a daughter? Don't steal her just because she's pretty." "Go away." Xiao Fei retorted, "I adopted Xiao Jin from the orphanage. There's even proof. You're just jealous of me. How can I raise such a good daughter?" Li Sihan sneered. "She knows that she's not your biological daughter. Has she ever thought of looking for her biological parents?" This topic was a little tricky. Xiao Fei suddenly stopped talking. Li Sihan sensed that something was wrong. She turned to look at him and smiled. "Don't tell me you found her parents?" Xiao Fei rolled his eyes. This woman's guess was really accurate. Xiao Fei had a complicated look on his face. "It's just a small dispute. It's hard to say. Anyway, Jean won't go back. Her biological parents aren't good. You're standing in her adoptive mother's position." Li Sihan looked at her from head to toe, but did not say anything. She only said, "Who are her biological parents? Are they rich?" Xiao Fei said, "You're such a hypocrite. All you care about is money. Is that a matter of whether you're rich or not? If you're rich, it's useless if you don't have a good character. By the way, why do you want me to go shopping with you? Can't you go tomorrow? Why do you have to go at night?" Li Sihan said, "Fine, go back and ask your husband to go with me." Xiao Fei, "Driver, drive faster." After Xiao Fei and Li Sihan left, Xiao Jin glanced over and smiled. He whispered to Song Yanqing. Li Sihan and Li Sihan knew each other before. She saved Li Sihan before. Song Yanqing immediately understood. No wonder the relationship between Xiao Fei and Li Sihan wasn't as simple as it seemed. The two of them looked like they were at each other's throats at the dining table, but they spoke like children quarreling. He couldn't help but laugh. "Annie Qiao is really interesting." Xiao Jin, "I think so too." The two of them looked at each other and smiled. If Xiao Fei was here, he would definitely say that this girl was not reserved. She had to tell Song Yanqing everything she knew. Song Yanqing looked at the girl's smiling face, and his heart was moved. He said softly, "You go back. I'll call you when I arrive. Remember to go to bed early." Xiao Jin nodded. "Okay." She watched Song Yanqing go back. After that, she prepared to go upstairs to her room. When she arrived at the living room, she saw Mu Xiangshan playing chess with Aaron. When she saw Aaron, she raised her head and called her with a smile, "Sister Xiao Jin." She was younger than Xiao Jin, so it was appropriate for her to call her sister. Xiao Jin nodded. When she was about to go upstairs, she suddenly saw a faint wisp of black energy above Aaron's head. She paused for a moment and stopped in her tracks. Mu Xiangshan noticed her reaction and asked, "Do you have something to say?" Xiao Jin pursed her lips. No. She saw that Aaron's black energy was a wisp of death energy. The death energy was very small now. It would probably take a long time for it to appear. Chapter 704. However, it wouldn't be more than a few years. In other words, something would happen to Aaron. She looked at the girl who was smiling shyly in front of her. She didn't see any malicious intent. When she saw the death aura, she just paused for a moment and went upstairs. Mu Xiangshan looked at her back as she turned and left. He was deep in thought. When he went upstairs, Xiao Jin received a message from Song Yanqing. Song Yanqing. Something will happen to Aaron. She will be murdered. The first time he saw Aaron, he saw the scene of the girl's accident. He saw people's fates based on their fate. Aaron's fate wasn't good, so he saw some clues. The difference was that he and Xiao Jin could see the cause of death, but didn't know the time. The other knew the time, but didn't know what would happen to Aaron. When he saw this message, Xiao Jin was deep in thought. Aaron was Li Saikin's daughter. After all, she was Fei Fei's friend and had interacted with Fei Fei before. Xiao Jin set up an array and calculated Aaron's fate. It was a long time ago. He only calculated that Aaron died because of family ties. Family ties didn't mean that it was done by relatives. Instead, it was possible that she was murdered because of the people around her. It would still be a long time, so there was no need to rush. After Xiao Jin looked at the fate line, he replied to Song Yanqing's message. It was Jin Jinyo. I got it. Li Sikan did stay in the Mu family for 3 days before returning to China. He left very quickly. Xiao Fei was the one who sent him off. Li Sikan left with Aaron. Xiao Jin didn't say this casually. It was too long ago. If he said it in advance, it would lead to changes. Moreover, it wasn't something that could be said directly. She went back to school. Her life returned to normal. Now, she just had to wait for the female corpse in Meng Qingyu's house to be resurrected and find out what was going on. During this period of time, Xiao Jin also received a special business. The person who pushed the business was none other than Fan Jin. Fan Jin had a friendship with Phoenix Qian En. Since Phoenix Qian En went abroad, Fan Jin also went abroad to relax. The voice she recommended to Xiao Jin this time was also a female celebrity in the industry. She had helped Fan Jin a lot before and had a good relationship with Fan Jin. Now that she had encountered some problems, Fan Jin recommended her to Xiao Jin to test her fate. This celebrity was also very famous. If this news were to spread, the entertainment industry would probably tremble. Because he didn't believe that information on the internet could be kept secret, the other party insisted on a face-to-face meeting. Xiao Jin didn't intend to agree at first, but after thinking that this female celebrity had some skills, he was suddenly interested. Moreover, she was really generous with the money. At least, it showed that she was not short of money. If Xiao Jin agreed to a face-to-face meeting, the other party was willing to pay 10 million for just one meeting. Xiao Jin looked at the twists and turns of fate on the other party and agreed. In any case, the spirit group knew about her current identity. It was indeed better to discuss such a big deal offline. Therefore, after making an appointment, Xiao Jin met with the other party. The location was at the female celebrity's house because he didn't believe it was anywhere else. Xiao Jin followed the information provided by the other party and came to a very famous manor area in the capital, Zila Manor. Zila Manor was a villa area. Each family occupied a very large area. It was the most expensive area in the capital. Each family was worth hundreds of millions. Chapter 705. Lu Manor was famous not only because of its size, but also because of its history. There were many legends that have been passed down. One of the mansions that this celebrity had bought was said to have been the residence of a historical figure. When Xiao Jin arrived, it was the celebrity's personal bodyguard who came out to greet her. Seeing how young Xiao Jin was, the celebrity was very surprised. After confirming her identity, she brought Xiao Jin in. The manor was very big. She had to take a car to enter from the outside. It took a few minutes to reach the mansion. There was a huge man-made lake in the front yard of the mansion. It was the size of the house. One could imagine how rich this celebrity was to be able to buy this area. This celebrity was a female celebrity named Chao Junmin. Chao Junmin's name could be said to be a household name. In the past, she was famous throughout Huaxia. She had been famous for a long time. She was famous throughout the country. She was only in her 30s, but she had been out of the entertainment industry for a few years. It was said that she was unmarried and was quite beautiful. When Xiao Jin was brought into the mansion by the bodyguard, she heard a cough. She walked to the beautifully decorated entrance. The interior was decorated in a European style. It was very grand but spacious. Chao Junmin's manager stood at the door. When she saw Xiao Jin, she was a little surprised. "You are? That master?" In their imagination, a master should at least look like an immortal. In fact, he did look like an immortal. It was just that Xiao Jin was so young that they could see it with their naked eyes, which was a bit shocking. Being young meant that he had little experience. Chao Junmin's manager, Li Lian, was a little hesitant. Her manager used to be very powerful. Xiao Jin couldn't be bothered to understand this. Seeing her, he nodded. "Where's Chao Junmin?" Li Lian paused. When they were contacting each other online, they weren't sure if Xiao Jin could be trusted, so they gave him a fake name. She didn't expect him to know who was looking for her. However, Li Lian had shown her face in the media before. She thought that he only knew it was Chao Junmin after seeing her. She nodded. "She's inside." At the very least, he was someone recommended by Fan Jin. He didn't know if he was reliable. Xiao Jin noticed that after she came in, the bodyguard left and closed the door. In an instant, only her manager and herself were left in the empty mansion. It looked a little lonely. If it weren't for the fact that it was daytime outside, the cold decoration style would have looked a little gloomy. When Li Lian brought her in, she said, "Don't tell anyone about what you saw," because the other party was a master. They still treated him with respect. However, this kind of respect was a little awkward. It seemed that it was not only because of Xiao Jin's identity. After Xiao Jin walked in, he understood what Li Lian meant. On the sofa in the side hall sat an extremely graceful woman. Her figure was extremely good, and just her back view alone was enough to charm thousands of people. However, if one ignored the strange stiffness of her legs and the old bark-like skin, she was an out-and-out beauty. When she heard someone come in, Chao Junmin turned her head. Half of her face was still beautiful, but the other half, like the old bark, the tree had melted, as if it had been painted with realistic special effects. If a timid person saw Chao Junmin's current appearance, they would probably scream in fright. Chapter 706. Who is she? Chao Junmin subconsciously covered the other half of her face. She looked like she was about to cry. Her manager went out to pick up a master. But who knew that she would bring back such a young one? She subconsciously thought that someone had broken in. She was very afraid of being seen by anyone. If it was exposed, she wouldn't be able to live anymore, and it would cause panic. Who would have thought that the beautiful Chao Junmin would become like this? Xiao Jin walked over and saw the tree on Chao Junmin's face. He found it interesting. "Did you suffer a backlash?" Chao Junmin was stunned for a moment. Her manager, Li Lian, came up to her and said, "This is the master recommended by Fan Jin." "Fan Jin?" Chao Junmin was a little stunned. "So young. Why are you used to judging people by their age? The person who made the deal with you should be very young, right?" Chao Junmin's body stiffened. "Well, what did you say?" Xiao Jin smiled and said, "I can tell at a glance that there's a reason why you're so popular. There was no lack of beauties in that era. The reason why Chao Junmin was popular was not because she was really beautiful, but because she had some special means. She met an array master. This array master made a deal with her and gave Chao Junmin good luck, giving her the opportunity to become popular. And anything that involved borrowing luck was definitely not a good thing. Chao Junmin had already suffered a backlash. Chao Junmin was flustered by Xiao Jin's words and subconsciously avoided Xiao Jin's gaze. No one was willing to admit that their current achievements were obtained through dishonest means. Even Chao Junmin's manager didn't know. But now that she saw Chao Junmin's strange situation, anyone with a normal brain would know that there was definitely something wrong with her. Instead of going to the hospital, she went to a master. This proved that something was wrong. However, Chao Junmin had no other choice. Her manager had been with her for so many years and could be trusted. She couldn't find the person from back then, so there was nothing else she could do. Chao Jin reached out and touched Chao Junmin's arm. Her arm had not completely transformed into a tree, but it felt like old bark, prickly and rough. Chao Junmin subconsciously wanted to withdraw her hand, but she found that she had to face Chao Jin's gaze. Chao Jin set up an array formation on her body and easily found out some things. Chao Junmin had made some deals back then, but she wasn't completely in the wrong. She didn't even realize what price she had to pay for making this deal. But now that the price had come, he had to make a choice. Chao Jin just asked her, "What is your request? You asked me to help you solve your current predicament?" "Of course," Chao Junmin said without hesitation. "Don't tell me you're here to watch the show. I'm going to make a comeback next month, but now that I'm in this situation, I can't act anymore." When she said this, she was filled with sorrow. Acting was secondary. The key was that she couldn't see anyone at all. She could scare a group of people to death if she went out like this. If it was made big and posted on the internet, she wouldn't be able to live. Chao Jin shook his head. "I'm asking you, do you want money or your life?" Chao Junmin's face froze. Even her manager's face changed. "Will I die?" At first, she thought that Chao Junmin just had some physical abnormalities. Chapter 707. Chao Jin stood up and said, "You took someone else's things. Although you didn't know, you should have known. Now that your middleman is in trouble, you are not an evil person. If you give up everything you have now, I can save your life. If you don't, you will die in less than a month." Her words were simple and direct, and Chao Junmin was scared silly. Her face was pale. What was the difference between giving up everything she had now and dying? Li Lian's face also turned green. Giving up everything? Did she mean what Chao Junmin had now, or all her fame and status? But there didn't seem to be any difference. Chao Jin said, "Have you thought about it?" Chao Junmin had been in fear for the past few days. Now that she heard this, she broke down. "I asked you to solve this problem. Do you think my 10 million yuan is for nothing? If it wasn't for Fan Jin's recommendation, if you asked someone else, they would have let you die." Chao Jin supported his chin and looked at her with interest. He was not angry. "I didn't come for the 10 million yuan. I just thought that your life could be saved. Of course, if you want to die, I won't stop you. You can do whatever you want." Not being angry didn't mean that she would spoil Chao Junmin. If Chao Junmin couldn't give up everything she had now, at most, she would give up her life. Chao Junmin's face stiffened. At first, she thought that Xiao Nian was young, but now, every word she said pierced her heart. She still wanted to struggle. "You don't even know what happened to me. How can you be so sure?" "I don't know what happened to you. You made a deal with someone else. How can I know the details? But isn't it easy to tell if you're going to die or not?" She was a high and mighty female celebrity, but in front of Chao Jin, she was just an ordinary person. Chao Junmin was completely stunned. Li Lian came forward and asked Chao Jin, "Master, what is the reason?" Chao Jin pointed at Chao Junmin. Back then, she wanted to be famous, so she made a deal with someone. She only thought that she had met a master. Why don't you think about it? How can there be such a cheap thing in this world? Do you think that just by paying money, you can offset what you got? How did you get your money? You relied on the luck you obtained through trading, and this luck didn't belong to you in the first place. If you didn't make the deal with your fate, you could have also become famous. However, you wouldn't have been able to reach your current status. Unfortunately, you had to get involved in such a matter and destroyed your fate. Now, you even have to bear the backlash. If you can't give up your current glory and wealth, then you can only bring it into the coffin and enjoy it. If Chao Jin had said that she was dead, it would have been fine, but he had said that she was destined to be popular. This made Chao Junmin unable to figure it out. Tears welled up in her eyes. At that time, she didn't suspect Chao Jin mainly because Chao Jin was right. She had indeed met someone at that time. The other party had said that he wanted to make a deal with her to make her popular. However, the other party only wanted money. After she had money, She had paid a lot of money to the other party. She had thought that the other party would pester her, but who knew that the other party had disappeared a few years ago? She had been unable to contact him, so she didn't take it seriously. It was only recently that she realized that some things were not so easy to get rid of. Chapter 708. After entering this industry, some things weren't as easy as outsiders thought. The female celebrities of her era had all sorts of unorthodox methods. They would do anything for fame. However, Chow Jun-min became popular, so she thought she had found the right method. She had indeed found the right method, but there was still a price to pay. Li Lian was shocked when she heard Xiao Jin's words. Jun-min, you really... Back then, when there were rumors in the industry, she didn't believe them as a manager. The main reason was that other female celebrities more or less had rumors of raising ghosts, but she had never seen such things around Chow Jun-min. Chow Jun-min didn't hide anything from her. There were no secrets at all. She thought that Chow Jun-min really relied on her own strength and good luck to become famous. However, recently, Chow Jun-min started to have problems. Only then did she realize that Chow Jun-min was hiding something from her. She started to become strange and didn't even go to the hospital. Instead, she asked Li Lian to find a fortune teller for her. She found a few, but they were all liars. Only one of them said a word and was helpless. They prayed to God and Buddha. When Chow Jun-min complained on her phone, Fan Jin found out and recommended this fortune teller. However, Fan Jin didn't know the specific reason for Chow Jun-min's problem. She thought it was just a small problem. Who knew that Chow Jun-min's problem was so big? Chow Jun-min immediately cried. I was too young at that time. I had no choice. A talent scout took a fancy to me. I entered this industry because I wanted to earn money. But at that time, there were so many outstanding people. There were also people who were prettier than me. I just relied on my face. How could I be so lucky to become popular? I couldn't get any films or resources. Someone wanted to sleep with me, but I wasn't willing. I was even banned. If I hadn't met her, if I hadn't met that person and she told me there was such a method, I wouldn't have taken this path. She said that as long as I earn more money and do more good deeds, I'll pay her more. I've been doing charity for so many years. I've donated more than $1 billion. How many people in the industry have donated more than me? I thought it would be fine as long as it was over. Who knew? Who knew? Xiao Jin said softly. If everything in this world could be settled with money, it would have been over long ago. Doing charity to increase one's providence is built on people who haven't done anything wrong. If you borrow the providence of others, that's an original sin. Others might understand, but karma won't. Chow Jun-min couldn't stop crying. Seeing her cry, Li Lian also felt sad. After all, she had been with her for more than 10 years, and she was also the one who brought her up. The two of them were like sisters. Li Lian looked at Xiao Jin and couldn't care less. Master, what method do we have to use to save her? Xiao Jin said, the one who borrowed luck was mainly the formation master. She was a medium. Now that something has happened to the formation master, she has suffered as well. You have to donate all your money, but I think you... She frowned. The person whose luck was borrowed should be fine. Chow Jun-min was destined to become popular. It was just that it happened a little later. This borrowing of luck messed up her providence and forcefully brought forward the time. The person she borrowed luck from was definitely someone very impressive. There were rules to the backlash. Chow Jun-min's backlash was her entire body turning into a tree. It was a little unusual. She looked at Chow Jun-min and said, I want to know who the master who lent you luck is. Chapter 709. Chow Jun-min cried as she told her the news. Of course, it was obvious that it was fake news. She definitely wouldn't tell Chow Jun-min her name, but the other party was very young at that time. Chow Jun-min still remembered the other party's approximate age and accent. She seems to be a female student, studying near the capital. I saw her once a few years ago. At that time, I heard someone call her Zhu. Xiao Jin shook her head. If the other party didn't come to her for fortune-telling, it wouldn't be enough to rely on Chow Jun-min's information. She asked, do you have a photo? She didn't let me take a photo. Chao Junmin paused for a moment and suddenly said, I think I took a photo secretly at that time. I remember I have a record. Sister Li Lian, in my old phone, I didn't ask you to throw it away. Li Lian suddenly understood. Your old phone that you don't use anymore? Celebrities change their phones quickly, but Chao Junmin had an old phone. She went to look for it and found that there was even a charger. She charged it and found that it could still be turned on. Chao Junmin took the phone and flipped through it. There was too much information and she didn't delete most of the photos. After looking for a long time, her eyes lit up. Here it is. Xiao Jin took a look. It was a photo that wasn't very good. She could only see that the girl in the photo was indeed very young. There was only the curve of her side profile, and she didn't notice the camera. Against the light, the outline wasn't very obvious. She was from the capital. If there was an array master, the spirit group should have records. When it was time to use her connections, Xiao Jin didn't hesitate. Xiao Jin sent a photo to Zhongli Painting and asked her to help find the information. Who would have thought that Zhongli Painting search would really yield some information? They had records of this array master. Zhongli Painting called her. The information is recorded and can't be leaked. I'll tell you directly. This array master was a member of the spirit group from the beginning. Her name is Ran Wanyue, but she emigrated many years ago and was in charge of the spirit group's affairs abroad. She disappeared a few years ago, and the spirit group hasn't been able to contact her. Where did you hear about her? Xiao Jin paused for a moment. Is your spirit group's recruitment so careless? Zhongli Painting was a little confused. Huh. No. Ran Wanyue is from the previous generation, so I'm not too sure. I know that she has an elder sister who is quite famous. She used to be a rich woman in Xiangdu and kept many popular male stars as her mistress. The last sentence seemed to be casually said by Zhongli Painting. Don't you know my idol Ferdinand? His father, Shi Kanyun, seemed to be kept by Sister Ran Wanyue. Of course, I didn't ask her. This is what the others in the group said. She didn't hesitate to talk about the private gossip of her idol's family. Xiao Jin, she raised her eyebrows. Ferdinand his father? How did things come to this after so many twists and turns? Xiao Jin suddenly remembered that Song Yanqing had once said that the woman who kept Shi Kanyun was the foundation of his fortune. Later, after Shi Kanyun got up, the woman disappeared, and no one knew where she was. The woman who kept Shi Kanyun was Ran Wanyue's elder sister. Ran Wanyue was an array master who helped Chao Junmin borrow luck, but now was backfiring. Song Yanqing's fate had been changed. She suddenly felt that some things were not over and had been strung together. Chapter 710. The array master who Song Yanqing had swapped his life providence was dead. Xiao Jin could sense it clearly through her perception. If this array master could survive after Song Yanqing took back his life providence, then this array master was even more heaven-defying than Xiao Jin. However, Xiao Jin had a feeling that Ran Wanyue must have had some other involvement with this matter, since she was involved in such a distant relationship. Now that she had easily obtained some information about Ran Wanyue from Zhongli Painting, she could directly use the array to deduce where she was now. In front of Chao Junmin, Xiao Jin directly began to deduce where Ran Wanyue had gone. However, she was a little surprised by this deduction. Ran Wanyue was dead. However, she did not die when she went missing a few years ago. She had died recently. In other words, Ran Wanyue was indeed dead. The array had lost its suppression and began to backfire on Chao Junmin. Moreover, she saw that Ran Wanyue had died in the country. After a pause, she saw Chao Junmin's worried and desperate expression and said, I'm going somewhere. I'll come back tomorrow. Chao Junmin immediately asked, Where are you going? Now that she knew that Xiao Jin was a master, her tone became more respectful. Xiao Jin said, I'm going to see where the person who lent you luck died. She said it very calmly, but when Chao Junmin heard the word died, she shivered and widened her eyes. Is she really dead? Generally speaking, it was very likely that she could not be contacted. Xiao Jin said, You'll know when you see the body. After saying that, she directly left. Her agent, Li Lian, asked someone to send Xiao Jin away. When she returned, Chao Junmin was in tears. Could she be a liar who told the world about me after she went out? I don't think so. And she didn't pay. Chao Junmin was speechless. When she came, she did not even ask for a deposit, which meant that Chao Junmin had not paid yet. Chao Jin left Chao Junmin's manor and booked a plane ticket. The array master died in Xiangdu, another city across the river from Shudu. In the last century, the entertainment industry in this city was very developed. Shi Kenyan started his business there. Moreover, Xiangdu was also very popular with some unorthodox practices. According to Zhongli painting, there were still many active array masters, but they did not have any contact with the array masters on the mainland. With the help of the spirit group, it was very easy for her to go there. She arrived in Xiangdu that very afternoon. This city gave her a very dull feeling. Through the array, she found the place where Ran Wanyue had died. When she saw the location, she pondered for a moment. In front of him was a mountain forest. Next to it was an old tube-shaped apartment that was about to be demolished. It seemed that there were still people living there. On the land where Ran Wanyue died, there was a patch of towering trees growing. However, they were separated in green. It could even be used as a ready-made park landscape. The place next to the mountain forest was an asphalt road. Near the edge of the asphalt road, there was a pile of fallen branches and leaves. There was a place on the edge of the road that was bulging, as if it had been moved by someone. It seemed that something was buried there. Xiao Jin lowered her eyes and thought for a few seconds. Then, she decisively called the police anonymously. Because Ran Wanyue's body was below, she could not dig it up. Moreover, there was more than one body below. The shape of the trees in front of her was very similar to the old bark skin that grew out of Chao Junmin after she had suffered a backlash. Although most of the trees were the same, Chao Jin knew that Ran Wanyue had died here, and Chao Junmin had suffered a backlash for a reason. Chapter 711. The police soon arrived. Chao Jin had called the police, but they did not know who had called the police. They only received the news that there was news underground, so they were a little nervous. Chao Jin watched from a building far away. No one knew she was there. Less than 10 minutes after she saw the police arrive, she had already dug something out. She was shouting and yelling for people to go over and help. Many police officers came. Half an hour later, Chao Jin saw them carrying a corpse out of the ground. The number of residents who came to watch the show increased. When they saw the corpse, everyone exclaimed in shock. They were shocked that there was a corpse here. The corpse was wrapped in a body bag. When it was dug out, the corpse was extremely smelly. It almost made people want to vomit. However, that was not the main point. The forensic doctor came and opened the body bag. In an instant, a stench spread through the area. Those who were close by almost fainted from the stench. A large group of police officers almost vomited on the spot. It was not that the corpse was scary, but it was too smelly. It was so smelly that it was unbearable. The people who came to watch the show all dispersed. The stench from the soul was unbearable. Even if they were just here to watch the show, they could not stand it anymore. The police officers quickly found masks and put them on. The forensic doctor also put on the masks again before opening the body bag. After the stench dissipated, it was barely bearable. When the forensic doctor saw the corpse, he was stunned. The corpse in the body bag was not that scary, but it was hard to understand. It was the corpse of a woman. Her face was swollen and pale. However, the strange thing was that the right half of her face had mutated. It had become old bark like a tree trunk, causing her skin to be damaged and her facial features to be distorted. The forensic doctor had seen many corpses, but he had never seen such a strange one. He was shocked. When the other police officers saw it, they were also shocked. However, before they could carefully examine the corpse, the police officer who was digging the corpse said nervously, "There seems to be another corpse in the pit." The others immediately looked over. Indeed, there seemed to be something at the bottom of the pit that had just been dug out. It seemed to be a human finger bone. The police officers immediately continued digging. The corpse from earlier was to be sent to the police station for investigation. No one knew who had called the police, nor did they know why a body had been buried here. This could be considered big news in the vicinity. Not long after, the other corpse was dug up as well. It was the same female corpse, but it looked similar to the first corpse. Soon, the identity of this female corpse was recognized on the spot. That was because she was Ran Baoqing, a famous rich woman in Xiangdu in the last century. It was as if she had died at the best time. Her current appearance was still as complete as before her death, allowing others to see her magnificent charm. Actually, she was quite good-looking at that time. She was rich and pretty in that era, so she was the object of many pursuers. After Ran Baoqing's body was dug out, Xiao Jin stood in the distance and watched. Suddenly, he saw something floating out of Ran Baoqing's body. That thing was a ray of light. Xiao Jin stretched out his hand slightly, and the ray of light rushed towards her. When she looked down, she heard a tender voice. "Big sister." Xiao Jin turned his head. It was a little boy in a t-shirt about 7 or 8 years old. Chapter 7:12. The boy looked young, and his family background was probably not very good. There were traces of seams at the waist of his t-shirt. The children living here were indeed not very well off. The people in Xiangdu spoke the local dialect, but this child spoke pure Mandarin. He looked at Xiao Jin and asked cautiously, "Sister, what are you doing here?" Xiao Jin stood on such a high floor and looked at things in the distance. To this little boy, she was like a fairy flying in the sky that he saw in cartoons when he was young. Xiao Jin smiled and said, "I'm standing here." The boy still maintained a trace of innocence. He walked up and looked at Xiao Jin seriously and curiously. "Sister, are you a fairy?" Xiao Jin said, "I'm not." The boy said, "But you look exactly like a fairy." Xiao Jin said cruelly, "Watch less TV." "It's a lie." The boy was speechless. Xiao Jin saw that Ran Baoqing's body had been dug up and the items had been obtained. She wanted to find out what happened back then. What are you doing up there? Come down quickly." A woman screamed. A woman in the same ordinary clothes rushed upstairs and stared at the little boy. "What are you doing here?" She saw Xiao Jin again. She was a little surprised and a little flustered. "Miss, this child didn't say anything wrong, right?" Her panic was a little strange. Xiao Jin just shook her head. The little boy named you suddenly pointed at Xiao Jin and said, "This sister is a fairy." "Mom, didn't you say that fairies don't exist?" "Look, I saw a fairy today." Unexpectedly, this sentence made the woman quite nervous. Her face turned pale. She looked at Xiao Jin and then at him. At that moment, she looked at Xiao Jin with a little fear in her eyes. She covered the little boy's mouth as if she wanted to drag him down. She scolded in a low voice, "Don't talk nonsense, don't talk nonsense." When Xiao Jin saw how nervous she was, she looked down at the boy again. Yu's mouth was covered, so she didn't make a sound. She followed her mother quietly. Xiao Jin stared at her for 2 seconds and suddenly said, "Wait." The woman's body stiffened as she looked at Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin walked over and said coldly, "Why are you so nervous when you see me?" The woman looked at Xiao Jin, her eyes darting up and down. She stared at Xiao Jin for a long time, as if she was trying to determine if she was a real person. After a long time, she felt Xiao Jin's fresh breath. She let out a sigh of relief, but she refused to let go of the child's mouth. She only smiled apologetically. "The child likes to talk nonsense. Miss, don't take it seriously." She spoke fluent Mandarin. She should have migrated from the city across the river from Xiangdu, not a local. Xiao Jin smiled. He said that I was a fairy. How is that nonsense? Or are you afraid that I'm really something he imagined? The woman's face suddenly turned pale. Her body began to tremble violently. She shouldn't have been so frightened by Xiao Jin's words. Her whole body was trembling. Xiao Jin glanced at you and suddenly reached out to touch his forehead. "He's too young. His ability is not so strong. He can't transform into a living person." Huff, huff, huff. The woman almost screamed from her throat. She was almost scared out of her wits by Xiao Jin's words. However, she seemed to be controlled by something and couldn't scream. Chapter 7:13. Xiao Jin bent down slightly and looked into Yu's clear and curious eyes. "You, how old are you?" Her tone became more relaxed, and she seemed to be unusually gentle towards this little boy. Aju felt his mother's hand loosen a little for no reason. He immediately answered, "I'm 8 years old." His voice was loud and clear, and he spoke very loudly. Xiao Jin nodded and continued to ask gently, "How long has it been since you moved here?" Aju lowered his head and counted with his fingers. "It's been 3 years, right?" The woman couldn't speak, and her entire body was trembling slightly. At this moment, when she saw Xiao Jin talking to you, she was even more panicked. Xiao Jin stood up straight again and patted the woman's shoulder. "You don't have to be so flustered. I won't hurt him. We're the same kind of people." This child in front of her was an unexpected surprise. This was because Xiao Jin had never thought that she would be able to find an extremely rare spiritualist here. This was the second spiritualist she had met besides Song Yanqing. You in front of her was still too young. His ability was innate, but it wasn't very strong. This was because he didn't know what his ability was at the moment, and he couldn't use it properly. However, there must have been something abnormal about him that made his mother so scared. The woman looked at Xiao Jin, and her eyes were about to tear up. "Miss you," Xiao Jin nodded. "Let's go in and talk." She wasn't in a hurry about Ran Wanyue's matter. After all, the police were going to transport the body back, and they still had to do an investigation. Compared to a business deal, discovering a spiritualist was the most important thing. Moreover, Yu was obviously not discovered by anyone. Or rather, these spiritualists didn't realize what a spiritualist represented. Perhaps they didn't even know that other than wizards and array masters, there was also a kind of existence called spiritualists in this world. The woman nodded in horror and turned around stiffly. Then, she walked downstairs with Aju in tow. They lived in this seemingly precarious tube-shaped apartment, and their living conditions weren't very good. However, hiding here could very well avoid others discovering Yu's abnormality. The woman was Yu's mother. From the moment she realized that something was wrong with Yu, she was afraid that Yu would be captured for research, so she brought him to this poor place. Their family's conditions weren't very good. She wanted to move to a better place, but there was nothing she could do. She didn't know who Xiao Jin was, but when she heard that she was the same kind of person as Yu, she felt an inexplicable panic and a kind of surprise. So her Yu wasn't the only one who was different. She went downstairs with them. They lived on the 5th floor on the west side of the building. There was a long corridor, and on the left side was the balcony. On the right side, there were many houses. Every house was very small. Entering the room, the kitchen and bathroom were in a narrow space. Other than a bed, a table, and a small cabinet, this room couldn't fit anything else. There were only some small toys under the table. There was almost no place for people to walk. The woman walked into the room. Her body was a little stiff, and her tone was a little panicked. The room is a little small, because she could see that Xiao Jin's clothes and temperament were completely different from them. Xiao Jin shook her head. It's okay. She didn't care about these things. Chapter 714. The woman was still a little uneasy, mainly because the room was narrow. She walked inside and pulled out a small stool from under the table. It was obviously a child's seat. She usually sat on the bed when she ate. You naturally sat beside the table, and there was a layer of building blocks on the floor next to her. There were also some cartoon posters that children liked posted all over the room. How should she put it? There was some warmth that belonged to her family in the narrow and difficult room. Xiao Jin didn't look around. She sat on the small stool and asked naturally, "Have you lived here for 3 years?" The woman poured her a glass of water and said a little uneasily, "Yes." She carefully closed the door and sat cross-legged on the other side of the table. She looked at Xiao Jin hesitantly and said, "You said, you and Mayu are the same kind of people?" Xiao Jin nodded and put down the cup. "When did you start to have the abnormality you think he has?" Yu Chu was stunned for a moment. Then, she thought carefully and said, "Probably since he was a baby. What abnormality could there be in a baby?" It was probably the obsession of a baby. A baby's obsession was nothing more than eating and sleeping. At first, Yu Chu didn't realize what was wrong until she couldn't take care of Yu. Then, she saw the milk bottle automatically appear in Yu's hand. He was already 3 months old at that time. When she saw it for the first time, Yu Chu was almost scared to death. She quickly realized that there was more to the matter than she had imagined. For example, no matter how busy she was, she would have the urge to appear by Aju's side as soon as Aju cried, even though she had planned to take care of the baby first and feed him later. No matter where she was, she seemed to be able to sense the child's tears immediately. At that time, he was too young. His obsession was nothing more than eating and seeing her. However, he was too young. She was still a baby and couldn't express her basic concepts. When she realized that something was wrong with you, she moved with you. You was her only child. She didn't want any harm to come to you, even if he might be a freak in the eyes of others. He might be hiding secrets that she didn't understand. At first, she was afraid, but she gradually got used to it when she found that there was no danger. It wasn't until you grew up and could speak that she realized that the situation was worse than she had imagined. All children love toys, and you was no exception. When you saw something outside, she would often pester Yu Chu and say, "Mommy, I want it. How could Yu Chu afford those toys?" She had to take you home. At first, you would cry and throw a tantrum, and when he did, the toy would appear in his hand, appearing out of thin air. Yu Chu had seen this many times and was finally certain. You has the ability to make her wishes come true. Xiao Jin was silent for a moment. When a spiritualist changed the rules, it could also be seen as her wish coming true. Yu Chu wasn't happy about this ability. She realized that if she didn't educate you properly, there would be a bigger problem with his ability. She began to teach you to control himself. He had to control his desires for other things and not speak carelessly. This was because every time he said something seriously, it was very likely that it would become a reality. When Yu Chu found out, she was being targeted by a perverted man next door. You said to her, "Mommy, he bullied you. I want him to suffer retribution." Chapter 7:15. That night, the wretched man was hit on the head by a stone that fell out of nowhere. He almost lost his life. She didn't even dare to stay in a place with acquaintances. She moved further and further away with you. Because of the change, she didn't have any good abilities. Her life was very difficult. Even so, she didn't teach you that he could reap without sowing. She didn't think about these things at all. She just thought that Yu's ability must not be discovered by anyone. She didn't want them to be separated. The older Yu grew, the stronger his ability became. He even asked the baby to come back to life and talk to him. Yu Chu was frightened at that time. Until now, Yu Chu didn't dare to send you to school. She could only buy some books at home to educate him, because she was afraid that the child couldn't control himself and used his ability to hurt other children. After hearing this, Xiao Jin supported his chin and thought for a while, "You are kind. I'm not kind either." Yu Chu still had a layer of fear on her face. "I just think that if something happens to the child, he will definitely be taken away. I don't want him to be trapped in a laboratory or be killed." Even if she hadn't eaten pork before, she had seen pigs run. She was very clear about what would happen to her child if others found out that there was something wrong with him. Society couldn't tolerate heresy. She had never seen other spiritual readers. Naturally, she didn't know what kind of existence the child was. At this moment, Yu Chu looked at Xiao Jin with a deep fear in her eyes. She held you in her arms and asked with expectation, "Do you also have this ability?" Xiao Jin shook his head. "There are spiritual readers in nature. There are 3 kinds of spiritual readers. I am an array master. Your child is a spiritual reader." Spiritual reader? Yu Chu had never heard of this before. She was confused at the moment. Xiao Jin said, "It's useless for me to tell you now. Your child must go with me. He can't hide his ability. The older he grows, the stronger his ability will be. At that time, as long as he has an idea in his heart, he can change a lot of things. It's useless for you to trap him here now. If he is found by others, he will either be locked up or killed." Yu Chu shuddered. Her face immediately turned pale. "But where can we go? Where could he go without being discovered? As long as there were people, they would definitely be discovered." Xiao Jin said indifferently, "Do you believe me? If you trust me, then follow me. You have no other choice. This child needs to be educated. You know very well that I can control him." Yu Chu hesitated. In the face of a stranger like Xiao Jin, it was unrealistic to say that he believed him completely. However, when she saw Xiao Jin's appearance, she felt a sense of conviction. In addition, now that the child had been discovered, she could see the child's ability at a glance. She also knew what kind of existence he was. At least, he was the same kind of person as the child. At this time, you looked at Xiao Jin and asked innocently, "Fairy sister, do you want me to go with you?" Xiao Jin nodded. However, you shook her head and shrank into her mother's arms. "Fairy sister, I can't go with you. I want to go with my mother. If I go, there will be no one to protect her." Yu Chu's eyes turned red. So this was what this child had always thought in her heart? He wanted to protect his mother. Chapter 716. Xiao Jin chuckled. "Why would I break you up for no reason? Of course, your mother will take you with her. For a young spirit master like you, it wasn't enough to rely on formations to restrain her. Only by having the person she loved by her side would she be able to restrain her. Yu Chu also had some ability to restrain you to this extent. Otherwise, if a child's thoughts were serious and strong, who knew how much trouble you would cause?" Yu was relieved and looked at her mother. "Mom, let's go with Fairy Sister." Yu Chu looked at Xiao Jin and lowered her head to think for a few seconds. Then, she looked up and forced a smile. Okay. Leaving with Xiao Jin was also a helpless choice, because she didn't know who Xiao Jin was. Xiao Jin stood up and said warmly, "Pack some things. You don't have to worry about who I am. I won't hurt you or you." Yu Chu nodded and let you pack up with her. She usually worked in a small garment factory nearby and earned a small salary every month. It was barely enough to support her and you. When Yu Chu and you were packing up, Xiao Jin suddenly felt a strange fluctuation. She suddenly said, "Someone's coming. You're inside." She opened the door and saw a group of people downstairs. They were dressed in suits and leather shoes. They clearly weren't people who should be here. When they came, they looked around the tube-shaped buildings and finally locked on at Xiao Jin's building. When they saw Xiao Jin upstairs, they were slightly surprised. There were 3 men and 1 woman in the group. The woman glanced at Xiao Jin and then looked at the people next to her. "Is that little boy here?" The man nodded. The woman looked at Xiao Jin. Her gaze suddenly focused. She's not an ordinary person. It seems that someone has discovered her. The few men looked at Xiao Jin with unkind gazes. That child's ability is too heaven-defying. We must not let others find out. Otherwise, if the mainland sends people over, we will lose a helper for nothing. The woman snorted. "Since he was discovered in my territory, he naturally belongs to us. What does this have to do with the continent?" Their words fell into Xiao Jin's ears. You and the others packed up quickly. There was nothing to pack in the first place. As for the rest of the furniture, Xiao Jin said lightly, "I don't want it anymore. I can't take it with me." Yu Chuqiong was scared. Hearing this, he hesitated and said, "These can be sold." Xiao Jin said, "It's too late now." Yu Chu's expression changed. "What do you mean?" Xiao Jin nodded at the group of people downstairs. "It seems that your son has been discovered. Fortunately, she had come in time today. Otherwise, a spiritualist would have disappeared. Could it be that the fluctuation in Xiao Junmin's birth chart was related to this? That was not right. A spiritualist was not directly related to Xiao Junmin. How could he appear in her birth chart? It seemed like it was purely a coincidence. He had a hunch. When Yu Chu saw the group of people, he was scared out of his wits. Then what should we do? From the looks of it, they were here to capture you. They were either doing experiments or doing something unknown. Most of the people who wore suits and leather shoes were dangerous people. Xiao Jin said softly, "Continue packing. Don't worry, I'll handle it." Chapter 717. The group of people also came up directly. They came up very quickly and appeared on the 5th floor in the blink of an eye. Xiao Jin just looked downstairs and didn't even blink at their arrival. A few of them tried to approach Xiao Jin slowly with vigilance in their eyes. When they found her standing in front of the little boy's house, they were even more sure of something. The woman stepped out and looked directly at Xiao Jin. Who are you? They couldn't tell at a glance. She might be an ordinary person, or she might not be an ordinary person. Xiao Jin slowly looked at them. The girl's cold and delicate face startled them. Her temperament was not like that of an ordinary person. She looked at them and smiled meaningfully. Who do you think I am? The woman's eyes darkened. She looked at Xiao Jin and said, You're not a member of our Xiangdu spirit group. I don't care who you are. We need to take this family away. I hope you can back down a little. The Xiangdu spirit group was different from the spirit group in the capital. Although the spirit group in the capital was the headquarters, it didn't actually control the Xiangdu spirit group. After all, the long-term situation had caused the people here to be very resistant to the mainlanders. In addition, Xiao Jin spoke fluent Mandarin, so they knew that she was not a local. However, they didn't receive any notice from the spirit group, which meant that the person in front of them couldn't have been sent by the spirit group. Thinking of this, their tone became more aggressive. They just found this little boy and observed him for a long time. Where did this girl come from? Xiao Jin shook her head. I will take this child to the mainland. You can't even deal with him. Her words made the woman's face change. You were sent by the capital? Why didn't we receive any notice? Xiao Jin said. Do the headquarters need to notify you? However, the people of Xiangdu Spirit Group had always thought highly of themselves. Xiao Jin's words were undoubtedly contemptuous of them. The woman said directly, We didn't receive any orders. You can't take this child away today. Otherwise, don't blame us for being rude. Unlike the spirit group in the mainland, the spirit group in Xiangdu Spirit Group was a mix of formation masters and wizards. After all, there were fewer people. It was not as extravagant as the mainland, where hundreds of magi could be found. Moreover, the spirit group in Xiangdu was much more chaotic. They were involved in many things and were not under the jurisdiction of the spirit group. This was where the problem lay. The few of them got into position. There were 2 wizards and 2 formation masters. Before the formation masters could make a move, the wizards attacked Xiao Jin first. Suddenly, a special golden thread appeared outside the balcony. It extended from both sides and rushed toward Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin didn't even move his hand. In the blink of an eye, the golden thread broke. Her eyes were locked on these people, and the smile on her lips was a little cold. I don't need to inform anyone when I do something. As soon as he finished speaking, several people in front of him fell to the ground. He was lying on the ground in a mess, as if he had suddenly fainted. Ayaya. On the other side, an old woman came out with a basin. When she saw the scene in the corridor, she was so scared that she screamed. She glanced at Xiao Jin, turned around, and went back into her room. She closed the door in a panic. We're done packing? Yu Chu's voice came from inside the door. When she came out with you, she was shocked when she saw the unconscious people in the corridor. Xiao Jin said indifferently, It's okay. Come with me. Chapter 718. She still had to investigate Ran Wanyua's matter, so she was not in a hurry to go back. However, Yu and Yu Chu could not stay in Xiangdu. She did not inform the spirit group, but called Song Yanqing. When Song Yanqing received her call, the first thing he said was, I heard that you went to Xiangdu. Xiao Jin replied, Yes, I did something. There was also an unexpected surprise. I found a spiritual master of speech. A spiritual master of speech? Song Yanqing raised his eyebrows slightly. A second spiritual master of speech? He knew very well how rare spiritual masters of speech were. Until now, Xiao Jin had only found the second one. It was indeed strange. Yes, an 8-year-old boy named Yu. His mother and I are all in Xiangdu now. However, I have not finished my business and will only be back tomorrow. I want you to arrange for someone to pick them up first. They can't stay here. The spirit group in Xiangdu has already set their eyes on them. Song Yanqing understood immediately and said, Okay, I will arrange for someone to pick them up immediately. However, what are you doing in Xiangdu? It has something to do with Ferdinand's father. Shi Kanyun was kept as a mistress, and the body of the rich woman who kept him was found. Song Yanqing was silent for a moment. Ran Baoqing? Obviously, he knew about this matter. It is said that she disappeared more than 10 years ago. She is indeed dead. Xiao Jin said. Her death was quite unexpected. I found an array point on her body. This array point is quite strange. It killed her sister, Ran Wanyue. Ran Wanyue was an array master and even worked in the spirit group in the capital. She emigrated a long time ago and disappeared a few years ago. When I came over, I found her dead here. She was killed by the array point on Ran Baoqing's body. Don't you think it's quite interesting? Ran Baoqing had been dead for more than 10 years. An absolutely dead person had no ability to take revenge. However, a strange array point appeared on her body. This array point not only killed Ran Baoqing, but also caused a backlash on everything on Ran Baoqing. This was also the reason why Chao Junmin suffered a backlash. Song Yanqing chuckled. If you think it's interesting, then you can investigate there. If you need any help, just ask me. Xiao Jin said, okay. After hanging up, someone came to pick up Yu Chu and Yu. Xiao Jin sent them to the car and confirmed that they were Song Yanqing's men. She even set up an array formation so that she could immediately sense if there were any obstacles on the way. She found herself a hotel to check in. In the room, she set up a formation around the Xiangdu police station and obtained the information she wanted. Ran Baoqing and Ran Wanyue's bodies were transported back to the police station, which shocked many people. The spirit group had already sent people to investigate. Because their bodies to the corpses was because the body to the point where her bodies, except for her to the point, her entire body to the was her bodies. The forensic doctor said that she had been dead for more than 10 years, but her face did not show any signs of decay. It was just that her body had turned into a tree trunk. Even though the spirit group had seen a lot of things, they had never seen such a strange thing. Moreover, some knife wounds were found on Ran Baoqing's body. It was speculated that she was killed with a knife when she died. But why did her body become a tree trunk? The police station and the spirit group were still investigating this matter. Xiao Jin was also a little restless because the spirit group that she had knocked out in the afternoon came to her door. Chapter 719. Before she even opened the door, she could already feel the tight encirclement outside. Although it was not worth mentioning to her, she felt that it was too annoying. A large group of people were guarding outside Xiao Jin's door, looking serious and scared. In the afternoon, they didn't even know what was going on before they fainted. This made them realize how terrifying Xiao Jin's ability was. Now, not only was he here, but he also brought a bunch of police officers. They had already sent a message to the mainland and were waiting for the notification. The woman wanted to knock on the door, but she hesitated when she thought of what happened in the afternoon. Just as she was thinking, Xiao Jin's door was suddenly opened. The woman felt something tighten around her neck, as if she was being forcefully lifted by someone and dragged in. She screamed, and before anyone could react, she was dragged in. Then, the door closed with a bang. The others narrowed their eyes. When they came forward to break the door, they found that they couldn't open it. After the woman was dragged in, her body floated in the air uncontrollably. Her eyes widened as she looked at the girl in front of her in horror. She was pouring herself a glass of water. Her movements were elegant and steady. It was impossible to tell that the person controlling her was this girl. The woman found it difficult to breathe. She suddenly regretted her rashness. What do you want to do with so many people? Did I do something wrong? Xiao Jin raised her head. There was a smile on her lips, but her eyes were cold. Are you so used to being left alone in Xiangdu that you even want to meddle in the affairs of the headquarters? No. The woman found it difficult to breathe. She realized the seriousness of the matter and didn't dare to refute Xiao Jin. She had called the headquarters, but there was no clear reply. The key was that she didn't receive any notification. How could she be willing to let Xiao Jin be taken away by the little boy? Even if there was a notification, they wouldn't care at all, given the attitude of the Xiangdu Ling group. They only wanted to snatch the girl, but they didn't expect to kick an iron plate. Since you have an opinion, I'll let you see the headquarters' opinion. Xiao Jin said and called He Yao. He Yao had just been promoted and was qualified to take charge of some things. Xiao Jin called her and said, I found a little boy in Xiangdu. Now, the spirit group in Xiangdu says that I'm not qualified. What do you think I should do? Yao, please wait a moment. How could Yao not understand what Xiao Jin meant? If Xiao Jin brought people here, wouldn't he be bringing people here for her? Many of her subordinates were recruited by Xiao Jin. How would she dare to meddle in his affairs? Yao knew how people in Xiangdu did things, so she wisely called her boss. After a while, the woman's phone rang. Xiao Jin reached out a hand, and the phone flew out of the woman's pocket and connected automatically. A man's voice was clear. Zhong Jiayin, if you meet a girl with the surname Xiao, don't bother about what she wants to do. The woman called Zhong Jiayin turned pale. The man didn't get a response, so he said again, "Did you hear me?" Zhong Jiayin saw Xiao Jin's playful expression and could only say with difficulty, "Yes." Chapter 720. As soon as she answered, the call was hung up. The person on the other end obviously didn't expect Zhong Jiayin to be controlled by Xiao Jin. The phone automatically returned to Zhong Jiayin's pocket. At this moment, she was so scared that she was sweating. Xiao Jin was still asking with interest, "Do you have any other opinions now?" Zhong Jiayin's eyes flashed with a trace of unwillingness, but she could only say, "Sorry, I was being nosy." Xiao Jin could tell from her expression that she didn't think so at all. Xiangdu had always been disobedient. Even if the headquarters gave an order now, Zhong Jiayin could pretend that she didn't hear it. But now that she was controlled by Xiao Jin, she was so easy to talk to. Xiao Jin didn't care. Zhong Jiayin fell to the ground with a bang. Fortunately, the ground was covered with a thick layer of carpet, so it didn't hurt. Zhong Jin lowered her head, her eyes surging with strong unwillingness. Xiao Jin said, "Do you have any other questions now?" Zhong Jiayin gritted her teeth and went out. Xiao Jin looked at Zhong Jiayin's back and chuckled softly. After Zhong Jiayin went out, a group of people outside all surrounded her. "Zhong Group, are you okay?" "Zhong Group, what did she do to you?" Zhong Jiayin looked up at these people and said with a gloomy face, "She didn't do anything. Let's go back first. Don't worry about it." Everyone looked at each other, but they didn't dare to disobey Zhong Jiayin's order. Naturally, they left with Zhong Jiayin. After Zhong Jiayin left, Xiao Jin, who was in the room, received a call from He Yao. "Are you okay?" "Xiao Jin, I'm okay." He Yao was a little confused. "Why did you go to Xiangdu? You even met the Xiangdu spirit group?" Xiao Jin said lightly, "I received a strong order, and the destination happened to be Xiangdu, so I came over. I also met a little boy who is a special spiritual reader." He Yao was now used to the boss picking up spiritual readers from all over the place. She couldn't help but feel a little envious. You could find awesome spiritual readers anywhere. The boss is indeed the boss. She sighed and continued, "But to be honest, we can't do anything about the Xiangdu spirit group. You know that because of some special reasons, the people over there have always liked to go against us. That's why we've been dealing with the incense on our own for so many years. Since you've taken her away this time, you have to be careful when you come back. Or should I send someone to pick you up?" "There's no need for that. I've already sent someone to pick her up. I have other things to do in Fragrant City." She didn't say much, and He Yao knew better than to ask. After hanging up the phone, Xiao Jin looked outside and continued to monitor the police station. She stayed there for a night. Through collecting intelligence and some information from the police station, she learned some things. Ran Baoqing had disappeared more than 10 years ago, and at that time, it was said that she had not yet broken up with Shirkinyan. At that time, Shirkinyan had already started to get involved in foreign business and gave birth to Ferdinand with Lois. As for more information, because it was too long ago, it would probably take a long time to investigate. One thing that Xiao Jin now knew from the array was that it was Ran Wanyue who killed Ran Baoqing, and now Ran Wanyue was killed by the array on Ran Baoqing's body. Why did Ran Wanyue kill Ran Baoqing? Ran Baoqing was her biological sister. Of course, Xiao Jin knew some things, but it was not easy to investigate the specific past for the time being. Chapter 721. Now that the two bodies have been investigated, the police in Xiangdu would investigate this matter. Qiao Jin returned to the capital with the array point and found Qiao Junmin again. When Qiao Junmin saw Qiao Jin alone, she was about to cry. I feel that my body is more powerful today. She was getting more and more powerful. She almost felt that her whole body had turned into wood, and she couldn't move. Now she couldn't go out even if she wanted to. When Xiao Jin saw Qiao Junmin like this, he just asked her, "You were very active with the stars in Xiangdu back then. Then let me ask you, do you know Ran Baoqing? Sister Baoqing?" Qiao Junmin blinked and nodded. "I know her." Qiao Jin was silent for a moment, then suddenly tooted. "I'm not investigating the case, but if you know her, you'd better tell me." She patted the array point on Qiao Junmin's body, but no one could see anything from her action. After a while, Qiao Junmin felt that her whole body was relaxed. She was a little shocked and almost cried out in joy. I don't seem to be stiff anymore." She held her face in her hands. Her face was rapidly changing. The tree bark that had grown out was falling off her face like dead skin. Very quickly, her face returned to its original appearance. Although she was old, she had taken good care of herself. Now that the bark had fallen off, she was still the glamorous star. Qiao Junmin felt that her body was not stiff anymore. She tried to move and felt that she could indeed move. Her body had also returned to its former flexibility and flexibility. She couldn't help screaming in surprise. "Master, I'm fine, I'm fine." She had regained the flirtatious appearance she had had a few days ago. However, the moment she recovered, Qiao Jin saw a wisp of black qi drifting from her head and completely disappearing without a trace. She paused for a moment and suddenly narrowed her eyes. So that was it? She meant that there was no such thing as a backlash for no reason. It was not enough for Ran Wanyue to die, and even Qiao Junmin had to pay with her life. It turned out that she had been targeted. This was a super large array, which had caused a series of chain reactions. The black qi attached to Qiao Junmin's body. It was not a backlash, but an absorption. Draw on her vitality and luck. The Feng family's array could only be considered child's play. Such a powerful array was not something that an ordinary array master could do. Most importantly, if Qiao Jin hadn't coincidentally bumped into her, she might not have discovered it for the time being. The situation was different from the Feng family. She suspected the He Li family, who had a close relationship with the Feng family. Now it seemed that this person was hiding even deeper. This type of formation was called the reverse loop formation and was an absolute taboo among formation masters. Using the array formation masters as the array points, they were scattered all over the world, using the lives and luck of different people to support a person. The key point was that the formations were all interconnected. Even if they caught the person, they wouldn't know where the life chi would end up. Qiao Junmin's luck had been borrowed from Ran Wanyue, which meant that Ran Wanyue was also a part of the array formation. This was a huge circle. It was impossible to find the source with just one or two people. Even if Qiao Junmin was dealt with now and her backlash was eliminated, she would still be the one who had a problem in the end. Qiao Jin looked at Qiao Junmin and suddenly laughed. Qiao Junmin was shocked. Chapter 722. She looked at Qiao Jin cautiously. "Miss Qiao, is there a problem?" "There's no problem." Qiao Jin's face returned to normal. It was indeed the work of his old rival to do such a thing. He was still alive after so many years. It was about time to set up this plan. Qiao Jin said, "Tell me about Ran Baoqing." Qiao Junmin said, "Okay." Qiao Junmin knew Ran Baoqing because there were many people who knew Ran Baoqing in that era. She was rich, very rich. At that time, the country had not yet taken control of Xiangdu. Relying on the chaotic situation in Xiangdu, Ran Baoqing made a fortune. She was rich and beautiful. She was also the dream lover of countless men at that time. She also took care of many male stars, and Shirkanyan was one of them. The biggest problem was that she really liked Shirkanyan. At that time, everyone knew that Sister Baoqing doted on Shirkanyan the most. Unfortunately, This man later repaid her kindness with ingratitude. Even Chao Junmin looked down on Shi Kenyan. Don't look at how few people know about these things now. There were many people who knew the inside story at that time. Shi Kenyan later went abroad and got together with the famous actress, Louisa. He and Sister Baoqing did not break up, and he still relied on Sister Baoqing's power to do business. Sister Baoqing was naive. After Sister Baoqing disappeared, all her assets were taken over by Shi Kenyan. At that time, everyone suspected that Shi Kenyan was the one who did it, but there was no evidence. Chao Junmin was upset. I think he's doing well now. Why don't the bad guys get retribution? She also knew about Shi Sanyan's son, Ferdinand. He was so well known. Xiao Jin was thoughtful. So you don't know that Ran Baoqing has a sister, Ran Wanyue? Sister. Chao Junmin was a little surprised. I haven't heard of this. Xiao Jin was deep in thought. The Ling group knew that Ran Wanyue was Ran Baoqing's sister, but ordinary people did not know. Even if these stars lived in the same circle, there were obviously some things that they could not know. Xiao Jin nodded. I know. You've already recovered, but I advise you to give up what you should. Chao Junmin's face stiffened. This? Haven't I already recovered? Xiao Jin said, it's useless even if you don't give up. You've chosen your life. You'll lose everything you shouldn't have in the future. I can save you this time, but if something happens to you, no one can save you. Chao Junmin's face turned pale. Xiao Jin glanced at her. What a pity. His original life had been destroyed by borrowing luck, and most of it had been absorbed by someone else. If he didn't give up now, only death would await him. Chao Junmin should not have taken such a path, but she had chosen to take it in advance because she was eager for quick success. Sometimes, one wrong step would cause her to lose all hope. Leaving Chao Junmin in a daze, Xiao Jin returned to the imperial capital. Song Yanqing told him that Yu and Yu Chu were now arranged to stay in the same place. It was the property of the Song family, and there were people protecting it. Because Xiao Jin said that Yu was a spiritual speaker, Song Yanqing also knew her importance and did not put them in an ordinary place. When Xiao Jin went to see Yu Chu saw Xiao Jin and immediately showed a very grateful look. Miss Qiao, thank you for sending us here. Mr. Song has almost explained it to us. Chapter 7:23. Once Song Yanqing made a move, it would be of some use. For example, he had explained everything clearly now. Otherwise, Xiao Jin would need to talk so much nonsense. Yu Chu had already accepted them and was willing to hand the child over to Song Yanqing. He was hugging his new toy at the side, looking like he was having a great time. When he saw Xiao Jin, he smiled very happily. Yu Chu saw Yu smile and felt a little sad. I rarely see him smile so happily. In the past, Yu had stayed with Yu Chu. Although he had maintained his innocence, he understood his mother very well. He had never yelled because his mother did not allow him to go out. It was precisely because of this that Yu Chu felt very sorry for him. Xiao Jin patted Yu's head and said to Yu Chu, don't worry. He doesn't have to go anywhere. He can go to school like a normal child. You don't have to worry about anything else. You just have to teach him well. If no one guides Yu's ability, it's very easy for him to get into big trouble. Yu Chu nodded. I understand. She looked at Xiao Jin gratefully. Miss Qiao, I'm really grateful that you and I were able to meet you. Xiao Jin curled his lips. This is fate. Ran Baoqing's matter was not over. From the moment Xiao Jin obtained the array point, he knew whose luck Ran Wanyue had borrowed for Chao Junmin. It was Ran Baoqing's. This was because an ordinary person's fate was not enough to support Chao Junmin's popularity in the entertainment industry. In other words, from the moment Chao Junmin borrowed luck, Ran Baoqing met Shi Kenyan, and her career began to decline. In the end, she even became Shi Sanyan's stepping stone. When Ran Baoqing died, her resentment was very strong, which affected the place where she died. There should have been a natural array point there, but under Ran Baoqing's influence, the array point mutated. The only thing he did not know now was why Ran Wanyue killed Ran Baoqing. However, since she could do something like letting someone borrow her sister's life, It did not seem surprising that she wanted to kill Ran Baoqing. The only unexpected thing was that Ran Wanyue had stabbed Shi Canyon. Not long after Qiao Jin returned to the capital, Song Yanqing told her that Shi Canyan's DNA was found on Ran Baoqing's body, and it was near the wound. Ran Baoqing's death had been determined to be a murder, so the police in Xiangdu had notified the mainland and asked Shi Canyon to return to China for investigation. He and Ran Baoqing were not clean. Back then, because he stabbed Ran Baoqing behind her back, Ran Baoqing's career plummeted. In the end, he reaped the benefits. Many of Ran Baoqing's admirers hated Shi Canyon. This time, he would be in big trouble when he returned to China. When Xiao Jin heard the news, he went to see Song Yanqing and said to him, Shi Canyon has a lot of connections abroad for so many years, but he can't even handle such a small matter. Why did he go abroad back then? Song Yanqing smiled gently and said, it's because he offended too many people. When the country was cleaning up evil forces, Shi Canyon spent a lot of effort to whitewash himself. The price was the domestic market. That's why he hasn't come back for so many years. Maybe it's also because of Ran Baoqing. He still has a lot of things in his hands. This is an opportunity. No matter what, he must come back. Qiao Jin and Xiao Jin laughed and said, I think Shi Canyon is also a wonderful person. Song Yanqing raised his eyebrows and said, Oh, you think so? Chapter 724. The matter between Ran Baoqing and Ran Wanyue isn't simple. Ran Wanyue is also an array master. It's not simple that she killed Ran Baoqing without implicating Shi Canyon. As for the matter of your life providence, he still hasn't been implicated in the karma. Because the life providence was exchanged by someone else. The ones who paid the price were Ferdinand and the array master. It had nothing to do with Shi Canyon. It was incredible that he could get away from the karma of a few array masters. Excluding the karma, Shi Canyon was just in a bad situation now. Karma was direct revenge. Now, it was more like Shi Canyon had just returned to the country to be investigated. Without substantial evidence, it was hard to say if he would be convicted. Apart from karma, there were many things in this world that couldn't be settled. Otherwise, why would there be the saying that good people didn't live long and scourges live for thousands of years? When Song Yanqing heard this, he nodded. You're right. I've been investigating Shi Canyon for so long, and I found some clues. He said, his wife, Lois, once had a suitor named Bernie. According to the information, Bernie is likely to be an array master. Since Ferdinand was born, Bernie disappeared. There has been no news of him until now. Just as you said, it's very likely that he suffered a certain degree of backlash and doesn't dare to appear in front of people. If it's him, he's only the main recipient of the life providence exchange. Qiao Jin said, didn't your father say that another array master appeared in the Song family back then? That means that this matter was a joint effort. However, I didn't see any backlash from this array master in your life providence, which means that this array master died long ago. Array masters were also human, and all humans had to die. Excluding some who used special means to survive, most of them still had to die when they reached the age. Song Yanqing nodded. He thought for a moment and said, the police are handling the matter of Ran Baoqing and Shi Canyon. We can ignore this matter for the time being. Of course, as a person who knew that his son's life providence had been swapped, Song Yanqing didn't kill them because of karma. However, Song Shireen couldn't take it lying down. Now that she knew about this matter, she planned to use this matter to teach Shi Canyon a lesson. Not really. Qiao Jin pondered for a moment, wondering if he should tell her about what he found out about Qiao Junmin. Seeing her hesitant look, Song Yanqing smiled gently and said, What's wrong? Is there something you haven't told me? Qiao Jin nodded. I found a problem with Qiao Junmin today. She told him about the inversion ring formation. The inversion ring formation has very high requirements for the person who set it up, but at the same time, it's very powerful. He can spread the karma through countless people. This way, even if one of the rings has a problem, as the main cause, it's very difficult for him to be affected. This was not like the Feng family. As long as there was a problem with one part of the Feng family, it would affect the whole family. After Song Yanqing heard this, he said directly, "You think it's your arch-enemy?" Xiao Jin nodded. "I think it's him." Song Yanqing frowned slightly. "If that's the case, he'll be discovered by you sooner or later. Won't he come looking for trouble?" A person who could set up such a formation was obviously not to be trifled with. Xiao Jin shook his head. He wouldn't dare. He wouldn't take the initiative to provoke him. Even if he appeared, Xiao Jin wouldn't notice. Xiao Jin was the only array master who could ignore karma and kill him directly. He would be crazy to come looking for Xiao Jin directly. Chapter 7:25. Song Yanqing was deep in thought. Everyone cherishes their lives. Your existence will always be a big threat to him. Xiao Jin grunted. But what can I do? Wanting to live and wanting to die are two different things. He's still hiding now because he feels that he hasn't lived enough and won't come out. Even if he causes trouble for me, the people under him won't be able to do anything. This is a stalemate, unless Xiao Jin makes a breakthrough. For now, one can't find the other, and the other doesn't dare to come out. This is the problem, and I don't think he's the main one now. Ever since Xiao Jin found out about her memories, she felt that her resurrection was not as simple as it seemed on the surface. Her sworn enemy was not the main one. The main thing was what the 9 array points were. Song Yanqing looked at her. What do you think is the main one? Xiao Jin was about to speak when Song Yanqing's phone rang. He said in a low voice, "Sorry." Then he picked up the phone. The person on the other end of the phone said something, and Song Yanqing said, "Send it to me. I'll take a look at the construction drawings." After hanging up the phone, he looked up at Xiao Jin and sat back down at his computer table to wait for the news. Xiao Jin continued, "The 9 array points are the main ones for me now. There were also the lost memories and why Song Yanqing appeared in her memories." Song Yanqing nodded. At this moment, the notebook in front of him received a message. He glanced at it and suddenly frowned slightly. A few seconds later, he turned the notebook around. "I think I found the location on the fan." Xiao Jin looked at the picture he turned over. It was a construction site and the prototype of a building. However, in the shadow behind an open space, there was a mountain protruding. It looked very far away, so it was very illusory. Its outline and shape were exactly the same as the drawing on the fan. Even though the fan was drawn with a brush, it was only a few strokes, but the two people with good memories were able to recognize it immediately. Xiao Jin was a little surprised. Where is this? Although it would appear after a certain period of time, he didn't expect it to appear so soon. Song Yanqing said, "What a coincidence. Recently, a branch company in Fog City is moving, and they chose a new address to build a building. This is the new address we chose, but there are some problems with that place. My subordinates called me and said that they heard strange sounds when they were building the building recently. They sent me a picture of the building, but I saw this address a while ago. Maybe the direction was different, but I didn't see anything unusual at that time. The photo taken this time happened to capture a mountain far behind the building." Song Yanqing felt that it was too much of a coincidence. This was because he had personally inspected the building's location 3 months ago. He still remembered it, but at that time, he didn't feel that it was the same as the place on the fan. Now that he had found the fan, the building had reappeared. Coincidentally, the direction of the building had changed. The staff gave out a few pictures, and one of them included the mountain. Xiao Jin said that it would appear at the right time. He didn't expect it to appear now. Xiao Jin looked at the mountain carefully. After a few seconds, he suddenly said, "This mountain, a very strong aura of death." There was even the aura of the Rakshasa realm. Xiao Jin quickly decided. "We're going there?" Song Yanqing nodded. "I'll have someone book the tickets now." Chapter 7:26. However, there was no need to rush. Xiao Jin sensed that the female corpse had woken up. In Meng Qingyu's house, the female corpse, who had been sleeping in a stone coffin for a long time, suddenly opened her eyes. In that instant, a special light flashed through the house. Her eyes shone like diamonds. They were like real diamonds. They were transparent and shone with a glassy brilliance. It looked a little strange. She suddenly took a deep breath, and it was as if fresh air had entered her lungs in an instant. With a pa sound, she grabbed the sarcophagus with her fingers and sat up. Even though she had been dead for thousands of years, her body was not affected at all. Even the red robe on her body looked brand new. She climbed out of the stone coffin. She looked around at the unfamiliar environment and furniture. She also heard the noise outside. There was also a very strange tapping sound. She looked around in confusion. She did not seem to understand where she was. The moment she stood up, her body swayed. She stepped out of the coffin. She looked at the table, then at the sofa. Everything in front of her was unfamiliar. Wouldn't it be very scary? Suddenly, there was a murmur at the door. Then the doorknob opened. When Meng Qingyu and Yang Qilu entered the house, all the furniture flew up and attacked them. They saw the woman in red standing by the window. Meng Qingyu called out and immediately raised her hand to block all the things back. Unexpectedly, her powerful strength only allowed her to temporarily block those things. The woman standing by the window sill saw Meng Qingyu's actions and was slightly surprised. Then, she suddenly said, hashtag at %% yen at hashtag. Meng Qingyu, Yang Qilu, they were very sure that the woman in front of them was not speaking Huaxiao language. It was also not any language they had ever heard. Meng Qingyu blocked the floating furniture with both hands. She gritted her teeth and asked with some difficulty, "She's awake?" Just as Yang Qilu was about to raise her hand to help, she lost all her strength. All the furniture fell to the ground with a series of rumbling noises. It almost made the people downstairs think it was an earthquake. Qiao Jin's figure appeared in the living room. He looked at the woman in the red robe with a hint of coldness in his eyes. When the red-robed woman saw Qiao Jin, her eyes were filled with vigilance. This was because the array she had set up in an instant had been completely dismantled by the other party. Although she had forgotten everything, she still had the instinct to distinguish whether a person was dangerous or not. Thinking of this, she took a step back and leaned against the windowsill. Half of her body moved out of the window. She was on the verge of falling, as if she was going to jump down from here. Yang Qilu and Meng Qingyu were both startled. Just as they were about to warn Qiao Jin to be careful, Qiao Jin reached out and pulled her over. She said something they did not understand. She seemed to be a little anxious as she glared at Qiao Jin. Qiao Jin pulled her over and reached out to touch her forehead. In that instant, the woman heard a cold voice. "You forgot everything?" At that moment, she realized that she could understand Qiao Jin's words. She was stunned. The next second, she asked hesitantly, "What?" Meng Qingyu and Yang Qilu. Chapter 7:27. Coach, I want to learn too. I want to learn too. Meng Qingyu was so envious that she was about to cry. Although she had awakened now, she was about to take the CET-6 test. Who wouldn't be envious of such an ability? I wanted to. Qiao Jin ignored her and let go of the woman in the red robe. The woman looked at Qiao Jin and asked hesitantly, "Where is this place?" Her voice was as clear as a nightingale's. It was unbelievably pleasant. Coupled with her beauty, she was a woman who was qualified to make people go crazy. Qiao Jin said, "This is the world thousands of years in the future for you." Hearing this, the woman's eyes flashed with disbelief. She muttered, "Thousands of years in the future?" A trace of confusion appeared in her eyes. "But who am I?" She didn't remember. She didn't remember who she was or where she came from. Meng Qingyu and Yang Qilu were surprised, but they couldn't ask since the boss was doing something. Qiao Jin frowned. "You don't know how you came back to life?" The woman looked at her and shook her head. She wasn't lying. She really didn't know anything. It didn't make any difference to her whether this was the world thousands of years in the future or not. She had a completely blank mind, so it was fine to treat it as a new world. "I only remember that my name is..." She looked confused and troubled. "My name is Mo Jiang." Mo Jiang? She remembered her name, but she didn't remember anything else. Qiao Jin didn't expect her to have such a side effect after coming back to life. It seemed that Song Yanqing's plan to get her to avenge Qian Song was a little difficult. Of course, even if she remembered, there was no place called Qiansong now. Xiao Jin reminded her. Then do you remember where Qiansong is? Qiansong? Mo Jiang was silent for a moment. She still didn't understand. Of course, maybe there was a mistake in the language, or there was no Chinese translation in her memory. In short, Mo Jiang didn't have any reaction to the name Qiansong. Xiao Jin couldn't help but click his tongue. Thousands of people had been sacrificed in exchange for the resurrection of the high priest. But now, they had no memories at all. She didn't even remember Qiansong, so she naturally didn't know how she was resurrected. The more she said, the more mistakes she would make. Xiao Jin asked Meng Qingyu and Yang Qilu to help explain to her what kind of world this was. Meng Qingyu was extremely envious of Mo Jiang's ability to instantly understand the Huaxiao language. She even wanted Xiao Jin to do it for her. Xiao Jin said she could understand it instantly because she's an ancient array master. You're different. If you don't learn it properly, you'll have to pay a price. Do you want to pay a price? Reaping without sowing had its price. If Xiao Jin could obtain all the knowledge in the world, why would he need to work so hard to learn? Meng Qingyu, his heart was about to break into pieces. Mo Jiang had just been resurrected, so she did not know anything and had lost her memories. However, this made it easier for Meng Qingyu to explain things to her. She quickly accepted that this was a new world. She didn't seem to have any doubts about where she came from. The clothes she was wearing did not match the current style. However, even if she walked out now, people would just think that she was cosplaying. Meng Qingyu found a new set of clothes for Mo Jiang to change into. Then, she realized something awkward. Mo Jiang was too tall. Chapter 728. Mo Jiang wasn't just beautiful. Everything about her was perfect. She had big breasts, a slender waist, and long legs. Her perfect figure was close to 1.8 meters. Meng Qingyu wasn't even 1.7 meters. Mo Jiang's clothes weren't suitable for her. Yang Qilu, who was stunned, was even worse. After some hesitation, Meng Qingyu turned to Xiao Jin and asked, "Boss, why don't we take her out to buy some clothes? Will she live here with Qilu?" Mo Jiang didn't wait for Xiao Jin's reply. She looked out of the window and said curiously, "I'll live here." She didn't know what kind of world this was, but she was filled with curiosity about this new world. After listening to Meng Qingyu's brief explanation, she already had a strong sense of curiosity. This was completely different from what she remembered. However, she couldn't tell what her memory was like. Okay, as long as she was obedient, Xiao Jin didn't care where she lived. "You can live here." She looked at Meng Qingyu. "I'll pay for your living expenses." Meng Qingyu. Boss was still in school, but she already had a few people outside. She didn't care about men, but a few women. What was going on? Meng Qingyu looked at Mo Jiang silently. To be honest, with Mo Jiang's face and body, she could cause a car accident. When Yang Qilu was teaching Mo Jiang the basics, she heard Mo Jiang ask, "You're a wizard?" Yang Qilu nodded. Looking at the beauty in front of her, she couldn't help but feel inferior. She had to treat her carefully. "Yes." Mo Jiang smiled, but it was not a friendly and bright smile. Instead, it was a smile with an unknown meaning. Meng Qingyu was curious. "Didn't you lose your memory? How do you know she's a wizard?" Mo Jiang. "There are some things that I've forgotten, but there are some things that exist in my bones." She glanced at Xiao Jin again. Other than Xiao Jin, she could see through the other two people in the room at a glance. She could even assess how threatening they were. Xiao Jin was the only one who sat there quietly. She didn't care about anything, and she couldn't feel any fluctuations of spiritual energy. However, just from the fact that she had suddenly appeared and neutralized his power, he knew that she was definitely not someone to be trifled with. She was very dangerous. Mo Jiang felt an instinctive sense of danger and an inexplicable sense of awe. Xiao Jin said, "I have something to do in Fog City tonight." Yang Qilu. Take Mo Jiang to familiarize her with the capital's environment. Let her understand more things. Her clear eyes looked at Mo Jiang. "It's best if you don't run around and don't cause trouble. This world isn't the world you think it is." Normal people don't know about the existence of spiritualists. Mo Jiang wasn't angry at the warning. Although she had her own pride, she couldn't be arrogant in front of Xiao Jin. She nodded. I know. She had forgotten everything. She didn't even know what to do. Of course, she had to familiarize herself with this world. She had climbed out of the stone coffin. This person in front of her said that she had been dead for thousands of years. Why did she die? How did she come back to life? She had lost her memory and knew that the price to come back to life was too high. So, how did she come back to life? Mo Jiang was completely at a loss. Chapter 729. Xiao Jin came to see Mo Jiang. After controlling her, she went directly to the airport to meet up with Song Yanqing. Song Yanqing saw her and asked in a low voice, "It's all taken care of." Xiao Jin nodded and was puzzled. She lost all her memories. She only remembers that she is a matrix master. That is to say, she even forgot how she came back to life. Song Yanqing thought of the memories she saw in the female corpse and was surprised. Does that mean she doesn't even know what she is carrying? Xiao Jin shook her head. Mo Jiang was very similar to her. They both lost their memories after coming back to life. The difference was that Mo Jiang only remembered that he was a formation master and had forgotten everything else. However, Xiao Jin still knew about her identity and many other things. Just as Mo Jiang had said, things that were engraved in her bones could never be forgotten. However, the difference was that no one sacrificed for her, so she had a backlash, but Mo Jiang did not. Because 1,000 people had paid the price for her. The after effects of coming back to life was losing part of her memories. Then there would be different degrees, depending on the matrix used for the resurrection. Xiao Jin could not help but click her tongue. Then this karma was quite fair. It's good that she forgot. Song Yanqing said, it might be a good thing for her. Now there is no Qian song in their hearts. Those who want to bring her back to life are destined to fail. If she was the legendary high priestess, bearing the fate of a country, she would not feel good. Xiao Jin looked at Song Yanqing and said seriously, some things can't be forgotten just because you want to. It's just that the timing is not right. Just like her memories would definitely come back. This was related to something she had always been puzzled about. Mo Jiang would also get her memories back. It was just that her opportunity had not appeared. Song Yanqing chuckled and held Xiao Jin's hand. I know. So before you remember it, don't be so burdened. Just take it one step at a time. Xiao Jin let him hold his wrist and said in a low voice, I don't feel burdened. Even though she knew that there were mysteries surrounding her and Song Yanqing, she was not in a hurry. There were some things that couldn't be rushed, just like the location of the fan this time. When the time came, the clues would naturally appear. To paraphrase a modern saying, Xiao Jin not only respected the cause and effect of life, he was also a Buddhist. Buddha was outrageous. If his sworn enemy were to appear, he would naturally appear. At most, he would just live for a few more days. Song Yanqing squeezed her arm and replied, The two of them were conspicuous enough in the VIP lounge. In such a quiet moment, Song Yanqing suddenly asked her, How many days did you ask for leave from school? Xiao Jin. Song Yanqing saw her frozen expression and couldn't help but chuckle. Is it really okay? Xiao Jin. I'll adapt to the circumstances and do my best. I won't fail. She was still confident about this. Song Yanqing sneered again. Seeing the girl's clear eyes staring at him, he stopped laughing and said, It's time to board the plane. Let's go. He took Xiao Jin's wrist and slid it down a couple of times until he reached her palm. The girl stared at it and didn't say anything. She raised her head and looked at the road ahead. Song Yanqing smiled and touched her palm with his fingertips. He squeezed her palm and held it. He pulled her all the way until they boarded the plane. 2.5 hours later, the two of them arrived at Fog City from the capital. Chapter 730. Wang Ming, hurry up! The girl with the braided hair was delicate and pretty, her cheeks a little rosy. She called out to the camera-carrying boy behind her to run faster. The boy's face was a little troubled. He looked around at the darkening sky and said fearfully, "Ah, Jing, let's go back first. I heard that things get a little strange here at night, and it's not very safe." They were all university students, and this was a park some distance away from the university. The park was not strange, but the strange thing was that next to the park was a mountain. Although on the surface it looked like a tourist attraction, but at night there were always some bad rumors. It was said that many people would disappear at the mountain next to the park at night. Where they went, no one knew. But these were all legends, and no one knew if they were true or not. In this world, there were always urban legends about late night. Jing stared at him, and his face was filled with a sneer. "Why are you so cowardly? All those legends are just lies. There are so many ghost stories told. Do you really think there are ghosts in this world? Feng Duping and the rest are still waiting for us. We have to hurry, or we won't be able to make it." Wang Ming was stunned and hesitated for a moment before he stopped in his tracks. "Didn't we say we were just going out to play for a while? Where are you going with Feng Duping and the rest?" "Of course we are going to the mountain of regularity next door." Wang Ming's face suddenly paled. "What are we going there for? Don't they say people often go missing there?" "Those are all fake news on the internet. If so many people really went missing, the police wouldn't be worried. You're too timid. Are you going or not? If not, I will go by myself." Jing stomped her feet angrily and glared at Wang Ming, the ferocity in her eyes obvious. Wang Ming was still a little scared, mainly because the sky was dark and the surroundings were dark. Although it was a park, but for a park built in the middle of a mountain, the number of people coming in was obviously decreasing. If it was safe, why didn't people come in the middle of the night? Wang Ming wanted to retreat, but Jing was the girl he liked. If he retreated this time, he would be looked down upon by Jing for the rest of his life, and he would have no chance at all. Thinking of this, Wang Ming gritted his teeth and followed Jing. Rule Mountain was a hilltop next to the park, and they could directly walk through the path. When they were halfway through the path, they saw a pavilion built on the side of the mountain, and there were already several students carrying bags waiting inside. The men and women were of different heights, and there were some who were fat and some who were thin. When they saw Jing and Wang Ming, they immediately started to shout, "What are you doing here? Why are you dawdling for so long? It's almost dark, and you've only just arrived." Jing chuckled and said, "Aren't we already here?" When Wang Ming saw these people, he was a little hesitant. "It's already so late. Where are we going?" A tall boy walked out and said casually, "Of course we're going for an adventure. This mountain is obviously so small. They always say that it's scary, but it's not that scary. There are people everywhere during the day. I just want to see if we'll encounter any danger if we walk around the mountain." The Mountain of Laws was called the Mountain of Laws. No one knew why it was called this, but it had existed since a long time ago. That's what the people here call it. There were a lot of legends circulating around. Basically, all of them were college students or passersby who had gone missing in the Mountain of Laws. But no matter how ridiculous the legends were, the police had never come to investigate the area. Over time, the people in the area had all treated the legends as urban legends. But in the middle of the night, no one was willing to come out, even if the scenery was beautiful. Chapter 731. When Wang Ming heard this, he felt that Feng Dapeng was trying to raise a red flag. He trembled, still a little afraid. That's not very good, is it? After all, if some legends are being spread, it means that something has happened. Do you fucking want to go or not? If you don't want to go, then get lost. Feng Dapeng grabbed Jing and turned to the others. "Wants to go around with me?" We'll all go. There are some really pretty flowers in the mountains. I'll go take a picture. I haven't taken a picture of the flowers at night yet. If I upload it to the school forum, it'll go viral. That's right, they're spreading such scary rumors, but I don't see anyone in our school saying anything is wrong. The current generation of university students were brave enough to challenge the legends, and when they heard that there was something wrong with the mountains, they were immediately unhappy and clamored to explore. Wang Ming saw Feng Duping holding Jing in his arms and shouted at him, "If you don't want to go, Then go back, you coward. Wang Ming looked at them laughing merrily as they walked into the mountains. He hesitated for a moment, then gritted his teeth and followed them. They laughed merrily as they walked forward, and because they talked along the way, their voices dispelled the haze in their hearts. They were about to reach the top. The mountain was actually very small, and from this height, they could still see the city center, as well as the building under construction in the distance. Feng Daping took out his camera to take a picture. Jing turned around and suddenly cried out in surprise. "Where's Wang Ming?" Feng Daping was stunned and subconsciously looked back with the other students. It was empty, and there was no sign of Wang Ming. Feng Daping paused for a moment, then waved his hand. "Hey, he probably didn't follow us. He was scared off." One of the students looked a little unhappy. "No, I just saw Wang Ming following us." The others. "That was a scary thing." It was late at night, and Wang Ming had disappeared. Feng Daping's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately said, "Nonsense, he didn't follow us. He's a coward. Didn't he just say that he didn't dare to come?" The student's face changed. He had indeed seen Wang Ming following them, but now that he had disappeared, he didn't dare to say anything. Jing was panicking as well. Maybe he just did not tell us when he went back. He is such a coward. I am sure he would not dare to come here. Feng Daping looked back at the top of the mountain. There were only a few trees at the top of the mountain. As long as he went up the mountain, he would be able to see everything. It was precisely because they could see the scenery of the city outside that they didn't feel that this place was that scary. But now that Wang Ming had suddenly disappeared, everyone's hair stood on end. Feng Daping immediately said, "Don't scare yourself. We're about to reach the top of the mountain. Let's go up and take a look, then go back." Wang Ming must have gone back. Now that he had said that, everyone would definitely agree with him. The group of people walked up the mountain. As they walked, they suddenly realized that there was smoke on both sides of the road. It was as if a thick fog had suddenly appeared. The entire city and its surrounding environment began to blur. The students didn't seem to realize it yet. They just continued to walk forward in a daze. Suddenly, they heard a sentence. "Coming, coming. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 people. 2 more. 2 more will be enough." All of a sudden, the students were startled awake by this sentence. When they looked around, they were instantly dumbfounded. Chapter 732. After the plane landed, Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing went to the construction site first. Song Yanqing didn't need to come to see a construction project, but he and Xiao Jin saw the place on the fan. So, of course, they came directly to deal with it. There was no one at the construction site at night. Xiao Jin looked around and stood in the direction of the construction site photo. He looked at the mountain in the distance and whispered, "There is nothing wrong here. The strange aura is coming from the opposite side." Song Yanqing also looked at the mountain in the distance. They couldn't see anything with their naked eyes, but they could vaguely feel an unusual aura. Song Yanqing said, "There is a very dangerous feeling." It was an uneasy feeling. Xiao Jin said, "Let's go." Song Yanqing nodded, and the two people took a taxi. The mountain was on the edge of the city, and it was quite famous. The taxi drivers all knew about it. "You're going to Regulus Mountain? I advise you not to go at night. That mountain has always been very strange at night." Song Yanqing suddenly became interested and asked in a gentle tone, "Why is it strange? Why is this mountain called Regulus Mountain?" The driver said, "I have been here for so many years, and I also heard about it from others. Anyway, no one has ever gone to that mountain at night. I heard that many people have disappeared, but the police didn't find any information. I don't know where the news came from." He glanced at Song Yanqing and Xiao Jin from the rearview mirror. He was shocked by the appearance of the two people and couldn't help but ask, "What are you two going there for?" "We have relatives living there. We are not going to this mountain." Song Yanqing found an excuse, and the chauffeur replied with a no. The car has been driving for a long time, and finally, they arrived at the park next to Regulus Mountain. They got out of the car and looked up. Except for a few nearby residential buildings, this was a park building, and no one came here at night. When Xiao Jin arrived at the foot of the mountain, She immediately sensed a strong aura coming from the mountain next door. She couldn't help but wonder, array points? Song Yanqing turned his head to look at her. Another array point? Last time when they were at Hu Qin's place in Jiang City, didn't they also find an array point? Xiao Jin, on the other hand, seemed to have some strange movements. This is not an ordinary array point. The ability of a formation master was based on the formation points. Some formation points were naturally formed or possessed by others. However, there was a type of formation point that could never be possessed by a formation master unless it was a special occurrence. That was the natural formation point that existed in legends. Xiao Jin had one on her, and that butterfly was her natal array point. It belonged to the Devour category. Back then, in order to obtain this array point, she had spent a lot of effort and almost died. You spirit masters can continue to grow. That is also the strongest goal. As for us formation masters, we have to find these legendary formation points. Only then can we master the strongest formation spells. The time reversal I obtained from Hu Qin is one of the subsidiary time formation points. Xiao Jin saw the mountain and sighed slightly. This formation point is the rule. Time rules, space, devour. Natural formation points were the strongest formation points of a formation master, but they could not be obtained by a formation master, because the price of obtaining them was too high. For example, if she obtained the time formation point, she could spy on the past and predict the future at will. If she obtained the space formation point, she could tear the space and go directly to the Rakshasa world. Chapter 733. This rule array point was even simpler. It was the existence that made the rules. No matter how unreasonable something was, as long as the rules were set, it would become true. It had the same attribute as Song Yanqing's verbal law ability. Song Yanqing was a little surprised. Why would such a powerful array point be in a place like this? Because this kind of natural array point can move. It doesn't necessarily exist here all the time. Xiao Jin looked at the strange aura coming from the mountain and felt a little regretful. It's a pity that it won't be of much use even if I get it, and no one else has this ability. Song Yanqing raised his eyebrows slightly. Since the array point is something that belongs to you array masters, why is it useless even if you get it? Xiao Jin looked at Song Yanqing. You've reached the level of verbal law. Will you use your ability at will? If you have great power, you will be suppressed even more. It is the same for these few array points. If the rules you set are too illogical, even if they become true, the karma you will have to bear will instantly take your life. This kind of power is not prepared for humans in the first place. The array point existed, but it was not something that humans could use. Xiao Jin's devouring ability was extremely powerful. She could devour the abilities of others at will, but she never did that. There was already the backlash of resurrection, so it would be too bad to commit sins. Xiao Jin said, compared to the rules, space and time are more useful. Because she had no ambition at all, getting the rules was like holding them in the palm of her hand. Song Yanqing couldn't help but laugh. This is just your personal opinion. If others knew that there was such a powerful array point here, no one would be able to resist. Even if they have to pay the price, they can use others to pay the price. Xiao Jin glanced at Song Yanqing. This kind of array point is not so easy to get. Even if I go in, under the rules it makes, I can at most save my own life and come out, but Song Yanqing said, the location on the fan led us here for a reason. Why don't we go in and take a look? Xiao Jin thought for a moment, then nodded. That's fine. In any case, she could guarantee that she would be able to leave. If you happen to find the hiding place of the rules, then take it. The two of them went up the mountain together and walked along the road in the park. There were street lamps on both sides of the road. Under the dim yellow light, their shadows were elongated. Song Yanqing held her hand. The driver said that many people went missing here. Xiao Jin nodded. The existence of the array points will cause a phenomenon. These people should have been pulled into the world it created by the rules. However, we will only know what it is when we go in. They walked along the mountain road and soon arrived at Rule Road. On the way, Xiao Jin found many footprints. There were quite a few people who came here, but they all left footprints and did not return. She paused and felt Song Yanqing holding her hand. Suddenly, there was a mist around them. Xiao Jin said, "We're going in." Song Yanqing also saw it. He saw the white mist around them. It was indeed like the transition of a horror movie, but the two of them were not afraid. It was not the first time they had experienced this kind of thing. When the white mist dissipated, they found themselves sitting in a classroom. This was a very ordinary classroom. How to put it? It was so ordinary that Song Yanqing had never seen such a classroom. The blackboard, the classroom, the tables, everything was very old. Chapter 734. There were 30 ordinary wooden school tables and dozens of frightened faces. They were all sitting in their seats. Song Yanqing subconsciously turned his head and saw Xiao Jin sitting next to him. However, there was a distance between them. The distance between each table was empty. He heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin nodded at him. As for the others, they were obviously not so calm. They looked like most of them were college students. A few of them were even trembling. Is everyone here? Looks like everyone is here. What the hell is this place? Dozens of trembling faces. What was different was that everyone was obviously stunned when they saw Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing. There were men and women of different ages who came here. More than half of them were college students. Xiao Jin looked at the wooden tables and the school in front of him and pondered. Which student came up with this idea? At the same time, a message suddenly appeared in their minds. Ordinary mock exam. 30 people are here. It officially begins. The message, without sound, seemed to appear directly in their minds, forcing them to accept it and filled them with absolute authority that they could not resist. The exam of number 6 high school has begun. There are now 10 minutes of discussion time. After 10 minutes, the exam will officially begin. No talking, no cheating. Those who violate the rules or fail the exam will not be able to return to the real world. That was more than enough information for him. Xiao Jin was silent for a moment. Song Yanqing walked over and asked curiously, "What is this mode? Why did the rules of the Matrix take such an unusual path?" Xiao Jin sighed. The first person who came in was thinking about the exam. The rules directly used his thoughts and turned this place into an examination room. Song Yanqing. He couldn't help but find it funny. In other words, if he thinks about something else, the rules will change into something else. Xiao Jin nodded. Yes, because the rules are not fixed. They will create all kinds of worlds and formulate rules that conform to the world line. If you do according to their requirements, you won't be able to return to the real world if you can't complete it. Xiao Jin rested his chin on his hand. You'll die. Right now, the two of us are equivalent to entering with a cheat code. We can't let it discover that something is wrong. Otherwise, it will eliminate us. When that time comes, it will take a lot of effort for us to get out. Song Yanqing understood. While the two of them were muttering to each other, the others did not understand. They all broke down and shouted, "Where is this place? What's going on? Weren't we waiting outside? How did it suddenly become an examination hall? All 30 of us are here. It's just a normal mock exam. What the fuck is the meaning of this? Are we going to die here if we don't properly take the exam?" As soon as these words came out, the place suddenly fell into a deathly silence. The boy who spoke instantly realized that he had said something wrong. He trembled and said, I was just talking nonsense." A male student suddenly squatted down and hugged his head as he said in pain, "The legend of the Mountain of Law is true. I finally know where those people who disappeared went. They all came in. If they can't complete the exam, they will die. We will all die here." Someone saw him and suddenly screamed, "Wang Ming, so you've already come in?" The boy named Wang Ming raised his head and looked at her angrily. "If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have come in at all. I wouldn't have encountered this kind of thing. Now all of you can just wait to die." You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference. as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.